I'm going to tell you right now, we is going to be at war if we're not at war right now. And I want to tell you, too, that your babies are going to have babies by the time you get home. I said one day, I said, Dale, let's go downtown and buy berets. Everybody had red berets. I said, Dale, let's go. No, Larry, we can't do that. He said, we could get ourselves in a lot of trouble. He says, what are you going to do with that? I said, we're going to walk around and see if we can get anybody to salute us. And he goes, we can't do that, Larry. He says, we can't do it. I said, let's just try it. Let's just see. He says, okay.
And, you know, usually when you're at the urinal, you just stay face in front or whatever. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Larry? All this time, your whole family has never corrected us on the proper pronunciation of your last name.
No, when they come hell or high water, they're going to get it done, or they're going to get their supplies the way they want to get her done.
Well, we had a little hell and a lot of high water on our deal down here, that's for
we
sure.
We did on that, so...
Hello, this is Jimbo from the YouTube channel Jimbo South Dakota, and I have Larry DeBuhr sitting next to me. And that's a little story within itself on the pronunciation of his name. And we're going to get into, he's got a lot of military behind him, some VA behind him. We grew up in the same town. His younger brother was in my class, and then they moved up to North Dakota. And so we're going to start, Larry, with just telling us as much as you want to about where you grew up, how you grew up, family members, and we'll roll into how you got into the military and go from there.
Okay, I guess first of all, let's get something kind of straight. I did watch The Price is Right before I got here because I'd never done one of these things before, and it's a little bit different for me. So please just bear with me. And if you need to shut me down, shut me down.
You'll be fine.
I grew up, like Jim said, we grew up together in the same little town, Elk Point. Like a town of like 1,300 people, I think is about what it was. Between 11 and
13 to 16 at most.
Not many people. Small town, everybody knew everybody. Everybody was related to everybody. My parents, his brothers were there, and my grandparent was there. My mother grew up there as well. My mom and dad were both classmates in high school. Mm-hmm. They were married 72 years, I think it was.
Wow.
Right in that neighborhood. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is really good. That's nice. And so a lot of relatives there, and was real active. If you weren't active in everything that we had, you weren't active at all. I mean, if you were going to go out for basketball, you were going to go out for football, you were going to run track. Wrestling started, I think, when I was a junior in high school. So one of those type of deals. But you did everything in the town. And really, there wasn't as much to offer as far as work as a lot of the places have. I mean, you farmed. You farmed usually with a family member because we lived in town. My father worked for Load King Trailer Company there for years and years and years, and my grandpa was a state judge there for the horse and dog tracks. I'm not quite sure if he was crooked or not. He might have been a little bit, maybe not. I don't know. And my brother is still there. My older brother is still there, and then David, who you went to school with, he's up in Fargo right now. Went to pharmacy school, and he's doing real well up there. And then my sister Ann, she's up there as well, and that's where Dad is now. Because Mom passed away actually 3 years ago on the 15th. So that's kind of what's going on there. And we just did everything, you know. And I was known as, I believe, Murley's boy, just like kind of like what you were. That if you got in trouble, that's what was going on. Dad was on the city council, and that probably kept me out of jail more than anything. Knowing the police officer that used to be there. I don't know if you remember Phil Graham.
I remember the name, yeah.
Yeah, he used to bring us home a lot. He was a nice guy, which was good. And it was always worse going home than it was to have being dealt with them. But being known like as Murley's boy or Murley's granddad or grandson, it kind of works at your head in some ways. And I never wanted to be that. I wanted to be me. I wanted to find out who I was. I wanted to find out Was I getting things because I was Merle's boy, or was I getting things because I was working on it on my own? And I needed to find that out. My dad, I was born in El Paso, Texas.
Mm.
Dad is in the Army, and then he got shipped over to Germany after I think I was just about a year or so old. So then he came back, and then I was the son of a milkman, because then he worked for Terrace Park, delivering milk and doing that kind of stuff. So I talk about that a lot sometimes, and not everybody can be a son of a milkman and know it. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I think, after, just speaking a little bit of that, that's kind of how I felt like I needed to do something for my country, number one, because I think I'm a pretty patriotic type person, and I needed to find out if I could fit into, that kind of a situation, and if I could excel in that situation. So instead of going to college like everybody else goes, what did I do? I enlisted into the Air Force my senior year in high school, and thinking that I could kind of, once again, roll along. And I thought I could run on the track team that they had there. And I thought, that must be nice and easy. So I'm going through basic training, and that your athletes that were doing that, the track people, if you remember right or not, I mean, you would actually get to compete against different bases. We're talking back in the 70s. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those type of deals. And I thought, okay, I can do this, because I could scoot along a little bit when I was in high school. So I ended up, I ran the 100 against a lot of folks of color that never been around anybody of color before, except for,
Milburn.
Doc Milburn and his kid in Sydney. And although Doc Milburn's brother was an Olympic high hurdler, you probably remember that a little bit. But anyway, and he came and he talked to us at high school, and I thought, well, I wonder if I could do this. Well, back then, I mean, these guys could smoke right along. And the kids I ran up against, I mean, the kid that won it ran a 9,900 in his boots, not in his shoes, but in his boots. Wow. And I thought, no, I can't do that. I said, I'll give the quarter mile a try and see what happens. And I ended up getting 7th, so I didn't make that team, but I gave it my best try. Sure. What the heck? So I got through that, and I was going to be what I wanted to be was into nuclear medicine, in the X-ray department. That's what I was going to do. Either that, I was going to go into physical therapy as a medic, as an enlisted Air Force guy.
So when you went in, you didn't have a guaranteed job at that point?
Well, yeah, I kind of did.
Okay.
I was a medical service specialist, because I had a great recruiter, and he told me, and I believed every word that young man told me.
Sure.
He said, I'll tell you what, he says, I got a job for you. And I said, well, I want to go into X-ray, or I want to go into physical therapy. He goes, that's not going to be a problem. No problem at all. I said, really? I said, so when would I get in? Well, you're going to have to go into the medical service specialty first, because we don't have any openings. Well, a lot of times they don't have openings. There's a reason why. It's not a bad little school to get in. My scores were fine. I could get into that. And he said, but you got to remember, you go in as a medical service specialist, while you're in a while, you can cross-train right over. That's not a problem. I think he told me a little story is what he did, because you couldn't cross-train. There wasn't an opening anywhere. So I ended up being what they call a 90250 is what it was, which you were a medical service specialist, which you worked in the hospital you were kind of like a glorified aide is what you were. But you got to do things that probably shouldn't have been done without a license. I mean, they allowed you to do that. And I learned a ton. Dude.
That wasn't like a 1980s TV show?
Well, it was pretty close. It was kind of like, what do they call it?
90210?
Yeah. It was something else. But I went ahead and did that. And right away they told me, you can go wherever you want to go again. We're going to give you your 3 choices, and you'll get one of them. And where did I put in for? I put in for Omaha. I put in for Rapid City, and then I put in for Grand Forks. Who wants to go to Grand Forks? Who wants to really wants to go to Rapid City, because a lot of people don't know about that. And why Omaha? I ended up, they sent me to Bitburg, Germany.
Oh, wow.
And I was going to switch with a guy and stay stateside is what I was going to do. So, and I was my wife and I, had met in high school. She's a Jefferson girl, and we dated 2 years in high school, and then she latched her claws right into me. That's what happened with that. I'm sure is what happened. And so we got engaged, and we were going to get married in February. And sure enough, boom, it was going to be over in Germany, so there was no way that was going to happen. So I called Dad up and I said, "Hey," I said, I have an opportunity to switch with someone going to Omaha or going to Ohio. I said, "What do you think?" He goes, "Well," he says, just think about this a little bit. He says, "How often are you going to get the opportunity to go over to Germany?
Right.
How often are you going to be able to do something like that?" And I said, "Well," I said, "I'm kind of engaged, Then the first thing he said is, "Well, is there a hurry?" I don't think so.
Well, there could have been a lot of people on their dream sheet put Germany on.
Yes,
and somehow you got it.
I got it right. I don't know how that. I think they just pick and away you go. So anyway, he says, "Why don't you think about going there? It's up to you." But he said, if it was me, he says it was really a good experience, and and we can always work on if you can come back, you can get married, And I think that's his way of saying, "Well, maybe you want to think about that a little bit." But anyway, it worked out well that I got to come back in February, and we got married in February, and it's been 49 glorious years now.
Excellent.
So yeah, we got our 50th coming up in February. But anyway, that's kind of how that military business came about. I needed to make something of myself is what I had to do. So, it's like in basic training, I was an honor grad, and I excelled in everything that I did. And I tried to excel in everything that I did. And
so less than 30, about 30 miles down the road south of where we grew up was Iowa Air National Guard.
Yes.
And an hour north, the South Dakota one. Did you know about the Guard before you went in active duty?
I did know, but I really didn't. One of my friends, Dave Harkin.
I was going to bring him up. Crew
Dave
chief
said,
down there.
"Hey, you might want to think about this." And one of the Rosenbaums, Calvin Rosenbaum, he was with the Army Guard, and Dave was with the Air Guard. And I thought, well, let's see what happens. Let me. I need to just totally get away. I think I have to do that. But I did end up when I come back. When I got out of active duty, I went into the 185th.
I did too.
So, yep, and that's when I got my dream. I got to be I was a X-ray tech. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no formal training in what I was doing, and I had probably the naughtiest guy training me that you'd ever want to have. He'd say, and he had to be, I don't know, I suppose he was 50 years old, 50, 55. He was old to me at that time. He'd say, Lair, that's what you do. He says, you get them young ladies up there, you press them up against that thing. He says, you got an outline of what's going on. And I thought, should you be doing that? I said, he goes, don't worry about it. Don't worry. I said, how do you know you're not giving them too much radiation? How do you know you're not? He says, I just keep it on this standard. I thought, what the heck? See, that was like in
old days there.
Old days. Boy. That was old days. That was old days. But
go to jail for that now.
Yes, you could. So I thought, I got in there, and I sat down. I talked to Dave a lot. I says, Dave, I'm going to nursing school, and I said, I should have my degree in such and such time. He said, well, go talk to recruiters. He says, let them know. Maybe you'll get that commission. I said, okay. So I went and I talked to them. They said, there's not a problem. I got that a lot. There's not a problem. This is going to work out well for you. We don't have anybody that has applied, for a commission. And by the time you get done, you should be able to slide right in. So I spent 3 years dinking around with those guys there, get my degree. I walk in, my little piece of paper, and I said, hey, guys, guess what? What's that? And I said, I got my degree. I said, when can you get me started to get the commission?
Sure.
We just brought 2 people in. I said, you did? And he goes, yeah. He says, we did. I said, can I ask who it was? Well, one of them was somebody that was there full-time, their kid, and then somebody else was somebody else's daughter. I said, okay. So I said, those slots were filled, right? And they said, yeah, but we'll give you an extra stripe. I said, well, who's going to take, I said, what about the empty spot? I said, it's in the clinic. I said, who's going to take that? Well, we don't have one in the clinic. I said, you do now. Because I said, I don't think you're ever going to see my smiling face again. And so he says, well, you can't do that. Well, my time was up. My 6 years was up.
Sure.
So I said, well, we'll have to see about that. And I never did go back to them. And then I got contacted by Army recruiter that said, hey, we're always looking for people to commission. I said, count me in.
All right. You're one of the few people I know that went from Air Force to Army. One was my uncle, who you interviewed a while ago.
Okay.
But I'm going to back you up a little bit.
Okay.
Germany.
Yeah.
How did that go? You were there 3 years?
I loved it. I was there 2 years. I was in Bitburg, Germany.
Okay.
And we had, I get there, and here I am, this 19-year-old kid, just turned 19, raining to beat the band, cats and dogs, and that's kind of how it was over there. And I got into, I think it was in Rhine, Maine, and then they bussed me from there to Bitburg. You get on this bus, it's dark, it's raining, you're scared to death, you don't know what the heck is what's out there, what's going on. I get on the bus, and we go. And they all these stops. I know they went to probably Hahn, they went to Trier, they went to what was the other one that was there? There was 3 different facilities that were across there, and the last stop was Bitburg, and the only person on the bus was old Lair, and old Lair with his duffel bag, and I'm going, son of a gun. They said, here you are there, have fun, enjoy your time, and I said, okay. Get off there, and I'm standing there in the rain, and it's raining with the duffel bag, and I'm looking around, nobody there. You should have had a sponsor.
Right.
Nobody was there.
Oh, man.
And so one of the SPs picked me up and said, hey, he says, let me take you down to the hospital. I said, sounds good to me. It should be drier there. Takes me down to the hospital, and the barracks were right across the street from the hospital. And so I get there, and there's a couple guys there in the emergency room, and I get there, I'm just soaking wet, and they said, so who are you? I said, I'm Larry. I come here to spend some time with you.
Good communication.
Yeah,
there, right?
it was bad. It was that was bad. And they said, well, we're going to give you a room. We'll get you, because that's what they used to do. They said, we'll give you a key to the room. We'll take you over to your room. I thought, okay. They take me over there. I'm on the 4th floor, the highest. There's a 4th-floor barracks. I get up there, and they said, here you go. I said, okay. Get in the room, and I could see this body snoring over on the side, and I thought, you could feel deliverance. I just didn't know what was going to happen here. I was young, and bed wasn't made, nothing. I mean, it had the sheets on the bed, and so again, I sneak in there, and I get myself all kind of cuddled in there and fall asleep, and then wake up, and the guy's gone. So I had no idea even who this kid was, and so I get done, and I go down to the clinic. I said, hey guys, I'm here, and these are my orders. Oh, okay. Well, my sponsor was part of the clinic. He just didn't bother to get the dates right or something.
Not proactive at all.
Not very proactive at all. But he was one of the better medics that were there anyway. And so I take off, and he kind of helps me out, and he introduced me to that roommate that I had, who was a lab tech. Strange dude. I mean, really strange, but nice. I mean, I just thought a little strange, and so I get all set up, and then they hook me up to they put me on the ward, and then I got to know a lot of people. I'm pretty friendly. I mean, I'll talk to anybody anywhere along the line, but the training was excellent there. I mean, they let us do things that probably should never have done. I mean, starting IVs, putting in central lines, doing stuff that.
Wow!
You right off the bat, man, and right from tech school. I mean, we didn't do anything like that. And I just got a feel for IVs and vessels and that kind of stuff. I'm not a drug user, but I mean that I could do that very well. So that went really, really well in Bitburg. So, and then I moved my way up at the hospital again as well. After a month, Janice came over. We had nothing, absolutely nothing. I mean, and she got over there. She had a trunk that she brought with her that had a record player in it that played those 45s, and there was a radio and just some knick-knack type stuff that she had. And I had one of the guys helped me find an apartment downtown, which was about a mile and a half from the base, and you had to cross in front of a French caserne to get there. And so we didn't have a car, nothing. Everything was on foot.
No on-base housing available, probably.
I wasn't eligible. I only had one. I had one stripe. I had
Oh.
nothing. I couldn't get in. I couldn't get nothing. I thought, God dang, this is terrible. And so Janice, she'd come in every once in a while. She'd walk down to see if she could meet me, and here's all these Frenchmen hanging on the bars of the place. Ooh la la, American girl, yeah, yeah. They didn't mess with her or nothing like that, but that kind of bothered me a little bit. I thought, God, you goofy son of a bucks, leave her alone. Just leave her alone. There's more of them than me, but I had to walk back and forth as well. So that went on for just about 6 months, and we were down to absolutely nothing. And the reason we were down to absolutely financially down to nothing is that when I got there, they gave me a small stack of orders, and I'd have to go to each place, like you do, and you drop off your orders so they know you're there. And the very last place that I went was finance. I had 2 copies of my orders, and the guy says, I need to have 2 copies. And I said, I only have 2 copies. If you'd like to make me, a copy, I'd sure like to have one. No, you're going to give me both those orders. And I said, no, I don't think that's going to work that way. And he goes,
Right.
Yeah, I need them. And I says, you could take this set of orders right here. And I says, and stick it in your ass, because I said, this is the only ones you're going to get. I mean, I was so frustrated with stuff that was going on. And that was the beginning of not getting paid at all. And I mean, we were down to, in 6 months, taco shells and peanut butter. That's what we had in our tiny little apartment, which was a three-tier apartment, 3-level apartment. Down the very bottom level, that's where the commode was. And the family lived there, that German family lived there. And all she could say is, Mrs. DeBuhr, whiskey, cigarettes, because everything was rationed out.
Sure.
So then you went up to the middle level, and that was where the bathtub was. For newlyweds, best thing in the world. I mean, a big, huge lion claw tub that you and I and half the people in here probably could have got into. Mm-hmm. But you had to filled up the heater, put the oil in it, and dripped it on there and heated it. And then you went to the next level up to your apartment-wise while that was heating, so you could take a bath. It wasn't a shower, just a bath. And you were just hope that Heinz Hubert, who was the grandson, hadn't jumped in that son of a buck before you got done, because it was already filled. So anyway, I mean, we did that, and it was just crazy. And then, like I said, got down to peanut butter and taco shells. And when I was working on the ward wise, I just ordered an extra meal. I just ordered an extra one. How many people you got? Because they just ask how many meals we got to make. If we had 9 inpatients, I said we had 10. Okay, so I always stashed that.
Trying to survive.
Yeah, I was trying to, and like I said, it got pretty bad. And finally, it's that South Dakota pride, I go to the first sergeant. I said, sir, I made an appointment with him. I said, I have a problem. He says, well, I haven't heard anything bad about you at all. He says, I haven't heard I've heard all good about you. And I said, well, this might have been a bad thing. And I told him what I had done. And he chuckled a little bit, and he goes, really? And I said, we haven't been paid since. He said, what? We haven't been paid what? And now this is the power of a first sergeant.
Yeah.
He cranked a hold of that phone. He called the finance. And I mean, he gave them a butt chewing. And within a week, I was getting paid. I mean, life was good. And so here we had all this cash.
Retroactively, too.
Yes. I said, whoa, we're good. So anyway, that's kind of how that kind of went. And then we ended up buying a little old, it's like a Mustang car is what it was, a little Ford Mustang. And it was, one of the guys was leaving and couldn't take it back or didn't want to take it back or something. Mm-hmm. And it was standard transmission. Both of us could drive that. I mean, we're from the Midwest. What the heck? So that's kind of how that all went. And then you worked hard. And I've said that, and I said that to the people at the clinic as well. You work hard, you play hard. That's just kind of how that goes. And I made Airman of the Quarter for the base, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, wow. they ask you these questions. Here's this farm kid, from the Midwest, but I think if you just, like I said, you work hard, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot from there, and I thought, okay, that's done. Well, then what happens is when you're together with your spouse, and it's just the two of you, things happen, and then she got pregnant over there, it was great. I mean, it was really good. So she had to go back a little earlier, but we got to travel to, we went to Luxembourg, we went to France, we went to Italy, we went to England, and her parents. Well, I don't know if you knew Peggy, Janice's mom and dad. Daryl was at Furline over there in England in World War II, and so Peggy was a war bride over there. So we went over there to visit relatives there one time, which was really kind of nice to do. And then when Daryl and Peggy came over after about a year and a half, then we all went to visit them. We all went to do that. So that was kind of cool. That was a good time. Like I said, got to see a lot of different stuff. And
so all your active duty time was
over there. Then I went from there to Maxwell Air Force Base, Maxwell in Alabama, Montgomery, Alabama, which is a unique place as well. But the hospital was very nice. And like I said, Janice was expecting. We get there, and they took this young kid. Again, I'm a young kid. I guess I was just about 20 by that time, maybe 20, going to be 21. And they put me in labor and delivery.
Really?
Why, God, would you do something like that to a young man? But they did. And I had a friend over there that he was in there as well. His name Jim Caldwell, and he was from Mississippi. And I didn't realize that the Confederate business was still alive and going over there at that time. I mean, they lived the flag. He lived what was going on. How he got to stay in, or how he contained himself, I never know. But he was a great guy, a great friend. And then one of the kids that I was in tech school with also got stationed there in Montgomery, Alabama. So, and then Melanie, our oldest, was born there, and it was really kind of nice because I was working nights, and I just hold her all night long. I got to do that. So the bonding was kind of cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. And we teaching young mothers how to do baby care, what I know about that. I didn't know it all, but they taught you, and they did your thing. And then you got into a few emergency deliveries, which really kind of get you thinking and going. I mean, I had one that we'd have just the doc, we'd have the nurse, and we'd have the tech. And we had one it was a breach, and I was handling supplies and making sure he had what he needed to have. And when the doctor was calm and you knew this was an emergency state, and he says, now you got to hurry. Hurry now. We need to get this. Baby's not breathing. Baby's not going. And of course you got your mask on, got your gown on, you got your gloves on. And I had to get the suction apparatus going, and I couldn't get it open. He says, no, just, it's okay. It's okay. Rip that stinking mask off. I bit that, the paper in half. I go, here you go. He goes, well, that'll work. He says, that'll work. So the baby made it. So that was even a big plus, another good plus. But you learn about, government and government waste, and you learn about, I guess I want the best for people that can use it. All these new moms, not half those kids. I mean, they were kids. They didn't have squat to pee in. And every 6 months, and I didn't know this, but every 6 months, these formula companies would switch their product from like Infamil, Similac, Prosobi, and all this stuff would go into the warehouse. And I mean, there was pallets of this stuff, and we'd get 6 months, it was Similac, and that's how they kept them on that type of formula. So Jim Caldwell and Jim had this big old stinking truck. I think all those guys from Mississippi had a truck. And I said to him, I said, gosh, Jim, I said, I'd just been ordered to go down to the warehouse, and I'm supposed to open up everything that's left, all the Similac, because they're bringing in like the Prosobi, and I'm supposed to throw it in the trash, throw it in the dumpsters, get rid of this stuff. I said, do you think that's right? And he goes, no. He says, oh, no, it probably isn't right. I said, well, what if? I said, we know everybody that's had babies. We know all that stuff, and we have their addresses. We have all that stuff. I said, we can get that. So I said, well, what if we would take this stuff and deliver it to them? We could be just like Santa Claus. We could just do this. He said, I think we could get thrown in the brig over this deal. And I said, well, how will they know? He said, well, they'll spot us. I said, let's put on these you put on the old gowns that you wrap around yourself and tie it. Did that, put the mask on. We get these big honking, they were like carts, fill it full of Pro-Sobe, or fill it full of all that Similac or whatever it was, not only the liquid, but the powder, and just filled that up and walked out just like we were going to throw it away. His truck was parked out there. We frickin' just would fill that son of a buck up, and away we go. And we never once got caught. But people just... oh, really? You're gonna? Yeah, there's no problem. Just make sure you don't know where this came from.
Yeah, you got to prep them.
You got to prep them. I mean, you got to know, because, and that was one of the things I probably shouldn't have done. But does it make sense to you?
Yeah,
did it make
absolutely.
sense to you? I mean,
it's like Robin Hood.
It was just like that. And the 3 times we just rotated formula, and it was. I thought, oh God, Larry, you're gonna get in trouble. You're gonna get in. Oh, not good. But we got away with it, and then went from there, came back home, and then joined the...
You had visions of telling a finance guy to take some orders and put them where the sun don't shine.
Well, I should have never said that. I should have, they'd have found those orders on me someplace along the line. But, why couldn't you have been kind? I think that's why I think I've always been that way. It doesn't matter if was at the VA or if it's been in the Guard or something, that everybody deserves kindness. And especially someone young, someone, that has not, is a little, you can tell that they're apprehensive. Be kind to them. Come on, because you never know what this person's going to be. You don't know if he's going to end up being a 4-star general. You don't know if he's going to end up being some guy that an Elon Musk, of course not quite that way, but that type of a thing, and so I always tried to do that with the younger ones that were there. And I think that always helps. And give everybody deserves a break.
Right.
Everybody does. I had, when you go from the experience of going from air to blue to green, let's put it that way. Blue people are very people oriented. They're very, for the most part, they are. Some active duty guys can be little poops, but for the most part, they really are. On the green side, it doesn't matter. I can remember I went down for a school in Fort Carson, in Colorado, and get down there, and I checked in, and I said, so where will I be staying during this time? I didn't care. He said, well, you're going to be in the barracks in such and such a place, down such and such a place. I said, okay. I'm thinking, then I asked, I said, well, how do I get there? You got 2 legs, don't you? And at that time, I was a 2nd lieutenant, and I thought, oh, man, that's not very nice. I guess I didn't get any perks from this. So I get there, and I go into that room, and I open the door, and I have never seen so much rust on a commode and in a single shower. The shower, I don't think it had been used for, I don't know how long. It'd been weeks, I suppose. And I look over, and there's a single bed that has the springs on it. Looking at that stuff, and I thought, there's got to be something wrong. Why would they put me in something like this?
Right.
Maybe they don't know who Larry is.
Especially as an officer.
Yeah. This is, and I went, well, okay. So I hoofed it back to where I was, and I told him, I said, hey, this room, I said, it's got more rust in it than I've ever seen in my life. I said, there's no linen. He said, you need to go over to this warehouse over here and pick up your linen. I said, and I suppose I need to walk over there. He said, yep. I said, okay.
And are there any other instructions, by the way?
No, yeah.
Before I had to come back again.
Well, I asked him too. I said, what do I do for a mattress? I said, is this India? I was kind of, some people don't think my humor is very funny sometimes, but I wanted to know. I said, is this India or what? You don't have a mattress on that bed? I said, no. He says, well, after you pick up your linen, ask them where do you need to get your mattress. I said, roger that. Go pick up my linen. And I asked the guy, I said, so where would a guy get a mattress? He says, well, if I was you, I'd take your linen, I'd take it back to your room, and I'd just set it on your bed. He says, and then go back over. It was like another 2.5 blocks over. This is another warehouse. He says, and you can pick up a mattress there. I said, okay.
On foot.
On foot. I go over there. I drop my stuff off. I go over there, and I said, hey, I'm in such and such a room. I'm in my orders. I'm supposed to pick up a mattress. He says, all right, go back there. He says, and pick one out. I said, okay. Go back in the warehouse, Jim, and there's mattresses piled out. It's like they were all breeding. I mean, there was no double bed breed. They were all the single mattress. And I said, well, which one do I get? And they said, just take one. Take the one that you want. I said, well, how do I get it back 2.5 blocks over that way? You're going to have to carry it. Here I got this mattress on my back, and I'm carrying this thing over to the barracks. So I always said the worst I ever had it as enlisted in the Air Force was the best I ever had it on the Army side of the house. I mean, it's sad. I mean, it's just sad, but it all worked out. I mean, I went and did my thing at the school wise, and
so the transition from the Iowa Guard, and you got your degree, and you told them sayonara. So then how did it go from there to, getting the position you wanted, and what was the training like?
Well, I spent 14 years on the Army side of the house. And so what I wanted to do, then I was what they call a 66H. So you were a med surg nurse is what they classified you as. And I could probably do a little better than that, I was thinking. So
you went to school for that and then got commissioned, or you got commissioned first?
I had to go to school for that first, and then I got commissioned. And then got commissioned. So I thought, okay, I can do this. And that's where they sent me like to Fort Carson. They just put you at the hospital, and you'd work wherever they wanted, wherever they thought they needed to have your help. That's where you'd be. So that, like I said, that worked out pretty good. And then finally, when the Desert Storm business came along, we were going to be it's another crazy thing. We were supposed, I get this call from these folks, and we were living in Canton at the time. Get a call, and they said, Hathaward was the gal's name. I don't know why I can still remember that, but she says, is this Lieutenant DeBuhr? And I said, yeah, or DeBuhr, whichever we want to go with.
We're going to go.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. And I said, well, it most certainly is. I says, what can I do for you? Well, she says, I just need to let you know that we have a grazing herd. And I said, you do? I says, I live on a little acreage out here. And I said, we don't have any cattle. I shouldn't do this. But she says, well, no. What this means is that we've been put on alert status for the Desert Storm. And I said, oh. She says, I just want to reassure you that we've never been activated, and we've never had anything like it. It's a 328th Combat Support Hospital out of Utah. I said, because they made me an augmentee then. I said, oh, okay. And it wasn't a half hour later. I was telling Janice, I said, hey, I just got a call. I have a grazing herd, and I didn't even know what the heck that was. And at that time, you didn't have that many uniforms. I mean, they didn't give you squat. So a half hour later, get a call. I'll let you know we have a raging bull.
Oh, man.
And I said, a what? She said, a raging bull. And I said, so what does that mean? Well, you need to report down to Fort Carson. Again, at such and such a time, you got X amount of days to get there. I said, oh. But I said, I'm not sure that's going to work. That's what I said to her. She goes, what do you mean that's not going to work? I said, I don't have a thing to wear, is what I told her, which doesn't go over very well either. But she was a nice gal. I mean, she was. So that's how I got activated for that mess, and it was interesting because they got us all there. People, there was, 300, I want to say 380 some odd people with the 328th that belonged to that unit. And out of that 300 and something, there was 14 of us that were augmentees. Just because we just filled their slot is all we had. And I thought, oh dear. So they get us all out on the tarmac, and you put your stuff down there. And I mean, there's a lot of couples, just like there was out at the Air Guard, and a lot of them that just had babies. A lot of them that just, they were just in shock that this thing went on. Well, the commander comes out. Most doctors, I shouldn't say it. We had some pretty good ones there at the Air Guard. But most of those Army guys, I mean, I think they were in it just for paying back their educational benefits and that kind of stuff, or paying back their schooling. They come out, I mean, crap. The Eagles would be all jacked up, or they just looked like sad sacks. And I'm standing back there thinking, well, I've been through a lot of this stuff, so it's not really too bad. So I'm standing out there. Here you got a Catholic boy that's with all these Mormon. Probably not a real good mix, but a couple of my best friends, I mean, were augmentees, so we got along pretty good with that stuff. So that was, but anyway, they had us all lined up, and this drill sergeant comes out. And I mean, he's huge. He is huge. And he's of color. And they all got the same voice. He says this, all right, you guys, I'm going to talk to you. You're going to listen to me. You're going to listen to me now. That same old rugged stuff. He says, I'm going to tell you right now, we is going to be at war if we're not at war right now. And I want to tell you, too, that your babies are going to have babies by the time you get home. People bawling all over the place. I mean, you talk about being kind to each other, kind to I thought, this isn't good. This is not a good situation. And I thought, okay, well.
Setting the stage for the worst.
Oh, he was. And I thought they were going to have a coup of some sort, but of course they didn't. And I thought, okay, out of the 14 of us that were augmentees, I tried to get a hold of them so I knew that we'd maybe at least have this bond. Well, this Hatton Ward lady that called me up, she happened to be, must have been an augmentee or something, because she happened to be in my group of 14. And Major Hernandez was the other guy, and I loved his accent, but he was with us as well. And I don't think he'd ever had anything to do with nursing for years and years and years. I'm thinking, oh boy, you go, Letty, what do you do? Oh, that's very good, very, very good. That's very good. He said, I'll stay with you then. I said, stay with me if you want to. I said, we'll make it through this thing. So we're out, like I said, around the tarmac, and we're doing our thing, and he's yelling at these people, and they're just bawling and just having a heck of a time. And so the day ended, and I think we spent like 2 or 3 days just acclimating down there. And so they came out with a deal, and they said, okay, this is the deal. We need to have somebody be we were supposed to be the first combat support hospital in the sand. I'm thinking, okay. So they needed to have a surgical nurse. That's what they needed. I thought, Blair, this doesn't sound too bad. Mm-hmm. It's like 3 weeks before Christmas. I ought to be able to work this where I can get home for Christmas. So I talked to the first sergeant, who got me an appointment with the commander and got me with his staff that was there, and did my knock, did my professional stuff. I mean, it hadn't been that long since I'd gone to OCS, and I thought, okay. And he says, what can we do for you there, Lieutenant? I says, I got a request. Oh, you do? I said, yeah, I do. I says, 2 things. What's that? I said, well, first of all, you guys said that if you had a volunteer, they could go home for Christmas, right? They said, that's true. It's true. And I said, and you're going to make them, I could become a surgical nurse? Well, I think we might be able to make that work for you. We might be able to do that. I said, okay. He says, well, what's the other thing that you really need to have? And I said, well, you got to make me a field promotion to make me a captain. She talked, should have gone to jail. So I should have done it. He goes, what? I said, well, I kind of like to have a field promotion, for captain, as long as I'm going to do this stuff. And I'd like to go home for Christmas too. And he said, that's not going to work. And I said, well, then I'm not going to volunteer. I said, thank you very much for your time, sir.
That was a showstopper.
That was a showstopper. Yeah. He wouldn't do it. Wouldn't do it for all. So anyway, I thought, okay. So I thought, all right, Larry, just calm down a little bit, because you don't have anything. I didn't have clothes. I had nothing. Absolutely nothing. And So they issued us some different things. They issued us our flak jackets and all that other stuff that goes along with it, and your steel pots. And then they came along and they said, all right, you need to sign this form. There's a form here that you sign. I said, what's this form for? And you're sitting like at tables. And I said, well, what's the form for? Well, this is the form here that says that you've had gas mask training. I said, I haven't had any gas mask training. They said, well, you need to sign it. This is just, we need to get this paperwork in. We need to do this. You need to sign that. I said, I've never had gas mask training. He goes, you need to sign it. I said, okay. I signed, never had gas mask training, signed my name. Everything that they did, I hadn't had IED training. I had nothing.
Right.
Augmentee-wise, we never had anything. And I'm not too sure that the people that were at their, that were with them full time had it. So didn't think a whole lot about it, and everything went through. Then they gave us a gas mask, and they said, here you go, yada, yada, yada. I don't know what the hell that gas mask was all about. Air Force, we don't play with that stuff that much anyway. We didn't then anyway. So anyway, we get there, and we were there 6 weeks, I think it was, down in Fort Carson. And then from there, they shipped us to Germany. So we're on these big honking planes. All 300 and some of us are on, I think it was 2 planes. And as we got off the plane, they're hollering at your name, so-and-so over here, so-and-so over here, so-and-so over here, yada, yada, yada. Well, 14 of us, they had us going to, we had no idea where we were going to go. But we stayed together. And the other ones all broke up into different groups. And so you got to ask the question, what's going on? And so they said what happened was somehow, some way, they went out and they audited the training records. And they hadn't done what they needed to do.
Sure.
And they told them that they were ready to be shipped over to the sand. The training officer lost his position. The commander lost his position. And there was somebody else that lost it. They pulled them out, and then they broke us all up into different spots and augmented everybody into different places that were there. And then I felt kind of bad about that at first. I thought, but maybe it helped. Maybe it did. Nobody ever confronted me.
It was the right thing. You cannot be forced to do that.
No. I was, what are you going to do? Send me home? That's what I used to tell my buddy. I said, what are you going to do? Send me home? Is that the case? Okay, I'll go
You're
home.
one of the few that did the right thing.
Yeah, that just needed to be done. So they get these guys out, and we spent 3 days, it's 14 of us, picking up cigarette butts. We had to paint a barracks internally inside this barracks. And then they said, okay, you guys are going to Vicenza, Italy. And I think that was with the 3rd Armored Division, Army side of the house, all beret guys. I mean, they were all top-notch dudes.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them had some issues after the war kind of went across. And a lot of it was just mental health stuff that was going on. It scared those kids to death is what it did. And they would take these kids at the hospital, and they would they'd make them work all night long, and then they'd have to come back, and then they'd train all day. They'd have 2 to 3 hours of sleep is what they got. That was it. I went to the command of the hospital. I said, you can't do that. I said, put me in there. I'll take so-and-so's place. So-and-so will take so-and-so's place. Don't do that to these guys. I said, they need to, number one, they need their rest. Number 2, I said, I think you'll get along a lot better with them if you do that. And so we did get to do that, but we had a lot of different maneuvers and we dealt a lot with the Black Hawks and a lot with the loading and unloading and moving from here to moving from there and to do some different things. So it's kind of interesting. That was good. And we had this little Dale Yardley was the only guy, I think, in the United States Army that was shorter than I was. Mormon, great guy. Dale was a great guy. And him and I got along very good. He's from Beaver. How do you say that? Yeah, I'm from Beaver, Utah. That's where I'm from. And he did a sabbatical while he was doing his Mormonism or whatever so he could speak a little bit of Italian, I thought that was a big positive. So Dale and I, like I said, we tried to make it a lot easier for everybody. He was a 2nd lieutenant, and I was a 1st lieutenant at that time. I couldn't get that captain, but so we got along, and we did some pretty kind of crazy. It's stupid now. It was kind of funny then, but it was one of those deals where I said one day, Dale, let's go downtown and buy berets. Everybody had red berets. I said, Dale, let's go. No, Larry, we can't do that. He said, we could get ourselves in a lot of trouble. I said, no. I said, let's go down and see what they got. See what they have. So we go downtown, and we bought blue berets, but they had that little tit, on the top of it. I said, cut that off. Just cut that off. I'm not going to cut that off. I just cut it off. You see anybody else out here, I said, that has a little tip on their hat? No. He says, well, then we can't either. He says, well, what do you want to do? I said, let's go back to the room. So we go back to our room. I said, Dale, this is what we're going to do. We had these nice insignias. It had like was like a lion on it, and a flag and all that other stuff on it. And I took that and I put that on the top. And then I took a specialist rank, turned that upside down, and then I took a private rank, put that on the bottom. He says, what are you going to do with that? I said, we're going to walk around and see if we can get anybody to salute us. And he goes, we can't do that, Larry. He says, we can't do it. I said, let's just try it. Let's just see. Says, okay. Because we had, he was the second and I was the first, so they were going to have to salute us anyway. So we're walking around the post, and man, these kids, they lock up. Because, they lock up and you go, thank you, soldier. Thank you. Yada, yada. And then we kind of giggle at each other as we go across. And one of the kids locked up and saluted, and he said, excuse me, sir, can I ask you a question? I thought, oh, suck. We're screwed. I turned around, straight-faced as I could be, and I said, what do you need, soldier? I said, what would you like to ask us? He says, I'm not too sure. He says, I've ever recognized any insignia on a beret before. He said, this is they were a jumping place. They were Green Beret people. He says, and I've never seen that before. I said, you have got to be kidding me. And Dale's just going, and he says, no, sir, I haven't. I said, have you never heard of the South Dakota Badland Rangers? And he goes, who? I said, South Dakota Badland Rangers. I said, we come from the Midwest. And I says, and this is what we're the medical side of the Rangers. He goes, oh, I'm so sorry, sir. He says, for, questioning what was going on. I said, that's fine. I said, I'm glad you did. You have a nice day. Offered the salute. And I said, we need to get these hats off and we need to stop what's going on. So shit. That's.
I always knew you were a fun-loving guy, but I didn't know it went that far.
Some of that stuff went further than it really should have gone. It should have, but I thought, oh God, what are we gonna do? We had to make light of different things.
You're thinking quickly on your feet, though.
Well, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good at some of that stuff. I was never allowed. I'd take him to church with me. Dale would come to church, and he'd just sit there, and he'd be fine. And it was Ash Wednesday, and I went into the tent, whatever it was, and I got asked to leave the Mormon thing because I wasn't Mormon. Dale goes, I'm sorry. I said, that's fine. I said, I understand. So I leave, and I just go outside and I wait for him anyway, and they get done with their stuff, and I said, well, now you have to go to Ash Wednesday with me. I don't know if I want to go. I said, you might as well go. I said, it's really, I said, it'll make you feel good inside. It really will. He goes, okay. So we go to Mass, and they put ashes on our forehead the size of I have a high forehead, did you know? But he put that big cross on me, and then he actually put it on Dale too. Dale came up, so what was he going to do?
Right.
And he goes, well, what's that all about? And I said, Dale, that's all about. And he goes, no, what? I said, no, he didn't get ashed. He didn't get ashed. But he says, what's that all about? And I said, if you get and look real close on my forehead, I said, you will see the image of Jesus Christ on my forehead. He goes, you're lying to me. I said, I'm not lying to you. I said, this is what Catholics, this is what we do. He goes, looks real close at me. I grabbed him by the ears and I rubbed my forehead on his, and I said, now you're one of us. So he's good at it. We still got in contact.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's cool.
Yeah, that was kind of Army life. Army life could have been. There's a lot of Army different stories that are kind of like that are just, you got to be, like I said, you need to be cordial to your people, and your people will be good to you. Mm-hmm. I'm like you. We grew up farm-wise. That's what you did. You worked. That's all I knew. That's all I knew was work. I could sleep, eat, and work. And I was out on a on an area that we were putting together tents together because we were going to bivouac out there. And I'm out there freaking swinging a sledgehammer, putting the stinking posts and stuff in and doing our thing. And two guys came across in a Jeep. One was a major and one was a captain. And I'm just cranking that son of a bucket. And they go, "Lieutenant, come over here." I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "What can I do for you?" He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, we're putting these tents up." I said, "We're getting ready for the exercise. We need to get these things up." He said, "You don't understand. You're an officer. You are to be a supervisor. You're not to be a laborer." I said, "Oh." He says, "Is that understood?" I said, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I understand." Okay. They get in their Jeep. They go. I go back. I says, "Come on, guys. We got to get this son of a buck finished." I mean, and then you have the respect of them.
Right.
They're very, very respect of that, what's going on with that stuff. So, because I know being combat support hospital, you're familiar with those big monsters. I know they're huge. I mean, it's just huge. You have vestibules that go from surgery over to the ward to X-ray to wherever you're at. I mean, they're monstrous. They're
intense. You're saying?
Oh yeah, everything ties together.
That's the way Blod was our first trip there.
Yes, it's just nothing but a big tent city, one single tent city. I mean, and we would hook up, get the generators running, we'd have our power team, our water team, all those other teams, and we'd always have those guys that were messing around, that would never do what needed to do. And we'd always have, during our exercises anyway, we'd always get attacked. And the hospital would always get beat. We'd always get beat. It didn't matter what it was, we'd get beat. So one of our guys, a guy and a gal, and I'm not too sure, I don't think they were married, but they were out doing perimeter checks and that kind of stuff. Well, then they got friendly with each other, and they're doing the horizontal polka or something. I don't know what the fart was going on. But they then discovered this piece of plywood that was underneath some straw type stuff. That's how they got in. That's how the insurgents got in. And they come in and they'd infiltrate us and they'd kill us. Well, they get done doing their little duties and that kind of stuff. And then they report that. So then we were ready for these guys when they came in. We were one of the first ones that ever had stopped them. They gave this couple this big award, for finding. Well, I got, how can this be? How can this? You guys are, they're both probably married to somebody else. I don't know, but Judas.
No matter how you found it, you found it.
They found it. They found it, and then
for the good of the Army.
For the good of the Army. Yeah. But the Army, when they need somebody, they will. If you volunteer, if you do, they'll let you do it. I mean, for the most part, because it's not going to be better than what you did. And when I was with the 328th, when I was with these guys, I got a call for some reason from this neurosurgeon and asked if I would be interested in belonging to the FAST team. I said, "You must have saw my track record back when I was in high school." He says, No, FAST. He says, Forward Advanced Surgical Team. That's what it was. I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'd really like to do that." And he says, "Well, I'll tell you what." He says, we're out in Massachusetts, 422nd. He said, "There's 22 of us that belong to this FAST team." He says, I'm the main surgeon. He said, "You would be one of the nurses, one of the two nurses. And then we have techs, and then we have surgical techs. We have kind of like a cookie type person. We had an x-ray person. We had a lab person. That's all it was. And we had 6 Humvees and 6 trailers. And our job was, if they got hit, we needed to be to that site and set up and operating within 45 minutes. That's get those surgical tables up, get things going, lights on, whatever. I thought, whoa, this could be interesting. But it was, all we did is train. And then we trained. And then when we were tired of training, we trained some more, which was fantastic to do. And that's what you have to do during wartime type business. There's no, you are always a soldier first, and then you are a medic or a doctor or whatever you're going to be. So, we would go and they'd try to split us up, go 3 and 3. All this business would go on. And for the most part, you knew how everything was marked in a trailer. So you could do it at night. It didn't make any difference. It's all marked. Everything's got the what do you call them, the reflecting type business that's there. So if they would actually cut off half of us here, we could still operate, and this half may not. They might be annihilated, but you could still operate, which those concepts I thought were 10 times better than I ever got on the air side of the house, and you try to get, I love the Air Force. I mean, when I went back to the Guard side of the house and you tried to get those guys into that concept when we were doing our exercises, they thought you're going to, because it's never going to happen. It's not going to happen. We don't need to do that. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And I think that's about the only time I was really ever kind of ornery to some of the folks that were there, because they needed to understand, you better get that gas mask on when they call gas, gas, gas. This isn't playing. You need to do it, or you need to be out of that, what's going on, or you need to do, and you need to know where your supplies are, and you need to be able to set up these tents, and you better be checking everything that's there. You better check all your supplies. And if your supplies aren't there, you better find somebody that's got those supplies that you can get them. So I like that portion of it. And they say, hey, DeBuhr, high speed. Because I'd have my canteen, I'd have my this, I'd have my that, I'd have all this crap on. And these guys they might have a canteen in their pocket, which is, I mean, thank God. I mean, it worked out well enough, but that's kind of my story anyway.
So how many years in the Army then, you said?
14.
14. And how many in the Air Force?
Oh, God. Let's see. I had total military time was 34 years. So it would be 20.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
A lot then.
Yeah. They did ask me to leave the clinic. I mean, Colonel Wall says, if you think I'm going to sign an extension for you, he says, that's not going to happen. I was too old anyway. I was commissioned. How did that work? If you were commissioned 15 years or 16 years or whatever it was, or maybe it was 18, whatever it was, I admit that. I said, well, if you think you're going to see my face sticking on the sign outside, that ain't going to happen either. I said, it's not, I did a lot better than I thought I was going to do. And we had a lot of success there. We really did.
Now, when you went in to the Air Force, did you have any thought at all as far as retiring as a military, or was it just like a year by year, day by day thing?
My goal was I was going to make it a career.
Okay.
That was what it was. And I thought, okay.
Never deviated from that, all the things you went through.
Nope, never did.
Good.
And I was going to, and I can't remember, something happened out at my last 6 months or whatever, that's active duty. And my grandpa called, Merle, and then Dan called and said, hey, Grandpa said we can have those front 3 lots that he has in Elk Point. He says, and I think if we put up a bowling alley there and a little restaurant type thing, we could make this thing go. I said, are you sure? And he said, yep, I'm sure. I said, are you positive? Because if I put in my paperwork that I want to get out, then I got to get out. Yep, it's going to go just fine. So I did it. I was just going to go in the Guards anyway. I thought, I could still make this work.
Sure.
So get over there, and I get out and go down and visit with Grandpa and Dan. And I said, well, when are we going to get started? What do we got to do? And Grandpa goes, why would I do that? Why would I have your grandmother look at the back of a bowling alley from where she's at? I said, you told me that this was going to happen. And it did. And that's partially kind of why I said, it's just things like that, that I'm thinking, why would you tell somebody that? And I mean, you just jacked up my whole career.
Yeah.
But
that's pretty wild.
But yeah.
Huh.
But it worked out.
All right.
So,
well, I think what we'll do is that looks like a good spot for us to take a little break.
Okay.
And then we'll start getting into your Air Guard career.
Dear.
And that's when I got reintroduced to you.
Yep.
I had no idea you'd
Yep.
gone to the Army, the nursing thing, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so then our story continues from there.
All right. Sounds good, Jim.
All right. We'll take a break.
You betcha.
All right. We're back. We took a little break there. And we were at a point where you were at the point of going into the Air National Guard. Mm-hmm. And once actually, I'm going to back you up a little bit. Because you worked at the VA as a nurse,
Yes.
full time.
Yes.
So did all that happen at the same time where you got on at the VA as a nurse and getting in like as a traditional with the Air National Guard, or how did that all transpire?
Well, how that went was Kathy Anderson. I talked to her before because when I got out of the Desert Storm, I was at the VA, and then that's when we got activated. And then came back and thought, well, how do I do this? How do I get back into the blue side of the house? So I thought, what do I got to lose? So I went to the clinic and I talked to the people at the clinic. I talked to, help me out on, he passed away too. Steve, who was our chief nurse there at that time. He ended up having cancer. He had lung cancer and passed away at home.
How long ago?
Oh, gosh. It's probably been 20 years now, though. That's maybe wouldn't know him then. But anyway, I'll think of it as we're talking, probably, and I'll come up with it. But I talked to him about it. And I said, hey, because I talked to him at the VA, and he was a surgical nurse up there. And I said, hey, do you ever have any openings for any nursing, on the blue side of the house? He said, it doesn't happen very often. But he said, when it does, he says, I can sure let you know. I said, okay. I thought, well, I'll kind of piddle around with it a little bit. And then when I went back out there again, and I talked to the people out at the Air Guard, and I said, hey, I'm a local kid here. At that time, I think I was a captain or major. I don't remember, right in that neighborhood. And so I said, would it be possible that I could take and drill here as an augmentee? And they said, we'd love to have you. And I thought, okay, sounds good. So I did that for, I can't remember how many years I did that. And they finally all of a sudden they had like 3 openings. It was the darndest thing I'd ever seen. And so I had to apply. And the problem that I had is that I was on the Army side of the house. And when I was on the Army side of the house, Army would have to release me, is what they have to do. It was over 2 years. It took them to release me and I didn't think it was going to happen. And Kathy got it to work. Somehow, some way, we were down to our last month. And she said, okay, you're going to have to relinquish everything you had on the Army side of the house, and then we'll take you on the blue side again. I said, sounds good to me. So did that, and that's kind of how I got in with him. Ryan Rand was one of the other guys that got in, and it wasn't Allward. It was somebody else that came in together. But and that's how I got in on the blue side. And I was just a staff nurse, and it was kind of a nice transition because I had been there and I got to see what was going on. And Diane Baumiller, I talked with her forever about this. And then, what was the gal? Her husband was a gentleman that got caught in that snowstorm.
Dick Rayburn.
Rayburn, yeah.
He was the ops group commander at the time.
Yep.
Winter of 96, I think.
Right, because I had her.
Helen Rayburn.
I had Helen as my nursing partner in a couple of the classes and stuff that I took. So I knew her too. So things they have a way of falling into place a little bit. And so that worked out pretty good. And Helen and I got along very well.
Yeah, she was a great person.
Yeah, she was.
Yep.
So, but that's how that kind of happened. And, and it was just history from there, and we went through a lot of commanders. We went through a lot of different commanders, and I wish I could remember that guy, Steve Jerentowski.
Jerentowski.
Remember him?
No, I don't.
Okay. Yeah. He was the gentleman that helped with me to get into that business. So that was good. So
do you remember the approximate year you went back to blue?
It had to be, in 2004, maybe.
Okay.
3 or 4.
That's about what I thought was early 2000s. So that was just prior to, a year or two before we did our first trip to Iraq.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's when I think I saw you in the chow hall, the dining facility, the DFAC, because I was like, that is Larry DeBuhr. I know that guy, And that was pretty cool. So then I kind of heard through the vine on that you had been Army and a nurse and VA nurse and stuff, and I thought that was pretty cool. So somebody from my hometown was in the unit with me. So
well, and I tried to disguise my name. That probably was part of that, and that's part of that history business that went on, because the spelling of our last name is DeBuhr, which should be DeBuhr. No one ever said DeBuhr in Elk Point area. It's always DeBuhr. And DeBuhr was always OER. And so I have numbers of people say, hey, are you related to so-and-so DeBuhr? And I said, no, I think it's spelled differently. So then I went, instead of the Buhr, I went to Burr. I don't know why I did, but we did. And so we just kind of took that on. And as we moved around, that's all what it has been. So
Yeah, because you got away from our hometown because that is probably going to stay forever that way down there.
It's that way. It's Dan DeBuhr. I mean,
you remember where we were when you explained the proper pronunciation of your last name?
God, I wasn't in the bar, was I?
No.
Okay.
I was working for you. We were fighting the flood in
Oh,
2011.
that's right. That's
at
right.
down in Sioux City, and
Yes.
we'll talk about that stuff. But you and I just happened to be side by side in the urinal down there.
Yeah.
And we started talking, and you explained the whole, the DeBuhr thing for me. And, usually when you're at the urinal, you just stay face in front or whatever. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Larry? All this time, your whole family has never corrected us on the proper pronunciation of your last name.
No, and they wouldn't. Nothing like, standing at the old urinal and getting it straight. The history's got to be straight there. So, but
Pisser education.
Pisser
right there.
education is exactly right. Just shake her more than once and you could be But no, that flood business was an interesting thing. I mean,
yes, because we were the first ones to go in.
Yep.
And this is, like I said, 2011, I believe.
Right.
I think I got the call from, at the time, I think Colonel Jameson at the time. I don't know if he was general by then or not.
I don't think he
might not have been.
was. I don't think he was.
And, so he gave me the call, but it was like Memorial Day weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like report to the guard like the morning of Memorial Day,
Right.
or something like that, or just maybe one day later. And ended up having a lot of people that went down there to fight the flood. It was the Missouri River that was flooding from way up north coming down.
And it was, as much as we did, as much as we tried, if you've lived around the river, if you've lived around some of that stuff, that we were almost fighting a no-win battle. That's what it was. And I think the people needed to have that little bit of hope. My brother-in-law lived in McCook, and we did some stuff. We tried to do some sandbagging down there. They came down, picked up a lot of sandbags and that kind of stuff. But still, it was a mess. It was a terrible mess. And the getting people out was bad enough, but the people that were trying to help each other was, it could have been very tragic in a lot of different ways because everybody was going to do their own thing. No one was going to tell them what to do. I don't think anybody had ever had anything declared like martial law or anything like that before, and they surely didn't. They didn't abide by any of that stuff. It was a challenge. Let's put it that way. And like I said, I don't know why somebody didn't get killed with the way people were driving and the people that were they wouldn't stop for anything. They've got they're hauling these trucks and they're not stopping at stop sign. They're just going to beat hell.
Yes.
And why somebody didn't get killed, I'll never know.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly really don't know why they didn't.
Yeah, because Colonel Escom, I believe, was our commander there.
Yes.
We were the first ones in. What was the position that you had?
I was supposed to be the assistant under Escom.
Okay, that's what I thought. You're like vice commander.
Right.
But and we were there, I was there like the first 3.5 weeks, something like that.
And then
and we were under the Army at the beginning, and then it switched to the leadership to the air after that.
Right.
So we were a big mixture of Army and air for the state, the guards on both sides. And it was a war zone in there. They were building the main levee right by the river and kind of zigzagging through houses depending on, like you said, what the personnel, civilians wanted done. And then they built a backup levee that kind of did a loop around it.
Right.
And we were the QRF, which was, I believe, an Army term, which I was learning, Quick Response Force. The placement of that was kind of odd because we were behind the first main levee, but we were inside the secondary levee.
So it was like a dike.
And after we left, they moved the QRF outside of that because why would you put that underwater, if the main levee gave, kind of thing. But it was just amazing what we were doing with sandbagging and filling in people's swimming pools and building levees and
And the coordination
of
filling those sandbags, I thought that went very, very well. It was just getting the direction to get people, to get the flow and to get who can help with this and who can't help with that and who's gonna actually try to take charge, and I think we did. And then we moved them. They moved out a ways. I can't remember who that was. They were filling in different areas rather than at the school, just north of McCook School, right in that area is where they had the big one, the big place. But still, it was, and there wasn't, the chaos. I expected more chaos with the people that were there. They all wanted their sandbags. They wanted them now, and you just didn't want to say to them, I don't know what good it's going to do. And people would take and sandbag their own homes. Or they would encompass that and say, I'm going to keep the river out myself. You're not going to keep that river out yourself. It's just not going to work that way. And I think my greatest fear, besides hoping somebody wasn't going to get killed, I was always afraid that we were going to have a swirl out there and someone was going to, because we were walking up and down the levees. And I think sometimes you get a little distracted and you're not really paying as much attention as you need to, because once something like that goes, you're screwed. There's nothing you're going to do, and you're not going to, and half of them didn't want to wear their life jackets, or half of them didn't want to, and you had to get on them for their own safety. And then, thank God, nothing happened.
Because when we first got there, the crux was filling the sandbags.
Yep.
And they were the county, emergency management, whoever, they combined everybody in the area, all kinds of truck drivers and stuff, construction guys, and they were constructing the levee while we were filling sandbags. It wasn't done by any means.
No.
And so after, I don't know, almost a week of doing the sandbag thing, then we were put down at the levee.
Right.
And I was the daytime NCIC, and I had like 12 NCICs there, and then another to fill out like 80 people. And then I think Chief County was for the night. And what they had, like I said, Army and Air. So at night they had all Air Guard people. And during the day we had about a third Air, 2/3 Army. And it was just nuts, because I didn't get a roster of names every day.
There wasn't a roster. There was a roster, but you never knew where anybody was. You didn't know. So if something would happen, how would you? And we did that well, I thought, with our buses and that kind of stuff, when we would haul people back and forth to spend the night or wherever they stand, whether it's in Vermilion or wherever we were staying at that time. We at least had a roster, and nobody left until that roster was full. Whereas on the green side of the house, a lot of those guys stayed right there. They stayed. My son Travis was there, and they had him and a couple other guys. They were in tents in that area, and I thought, you're going to float away if something goes, if something breaks on this thing. What are you going to do with this stuff? And so we, I don't know, that the accountability of people on the green side, like I said, is not what it is on the blue side.
Yeah.
It's just not. And again, it all worked out. It always seems to work out well. It just does. But it's just.
Yeah. And where the QRF was that circle.
Yes.
And like you said, no stopping for stop signs. Well, circles really. And it was, bumper to bumper, big trucks going fast, lots of noise. And I remember there's this one time where a young mother and as like teenage daughter or whatever was because civilians were driving within this too when they were some were allowed to be there for a while. But I remember we're sitting there eating our lunch and a truck blew a tire. And she thought somebody was shooting at them or something. It just tripped her brain, and just felt bad for her. She stopped the car, got out, was going around the car checking, screaming, crying, and her daughter inside was trying to get her in. So I walked over there, tried to calm her down and just tell her it was a truck tire blew, and all that. And that's when it really opened up to me what was going through people's minds and the stress and how it can affect them differently and things.
Oh.
I mean, it was completely irrational yet rational in her mind of what happened, because she saw a war zone around her and had no idea.
And why wouldn't she? I mean, you've got all these people in uniform, you got all these people going these different directions, and you got, and especially if you've never been around that before, and then all of a sudden it's kind of like martial law. You pull in and away you go. You know, it's not a good thing. Yeah. And I'm just so thankful that went as well, quote, as it did. And I was just surprised at the different, the multi-million-dollar facilities that were down, the houses that were there that they were trying to.
And some were even in construction, and as the water was coming up, it was flowing through their garage.
Yep.
You know, and they had the levee built the best they could. What I thought was the most interesting was the training. When you talked about the swirl and stuff, number one, we had to have it set up so that there was emergency places to go. If the levee breached, the word went out, everybody had a place to go. And a lot of times it was to certain houses up on the upper level where the water could just be going right underneath where they're at anyway. But we at least had that.
But to see the boils on the ground. I mean, it was kind of like watching the Beverly Hillbillies, that had the crude oil coming up through the ground like that. And you're thinking, this thing could go. I mean, it could go anytime. Stay alert, stay alive, guys, because it could be.
And the training, that was the interesting part, because they had all of us trained, because they had 6 different sections along the levee and 2 NCOICs per, and then they had like maybe a dozen people or so. And they were supposed to be monitoring the levee. And then if they saw something sprouting up underneath, and part of the training we had was that could be 100 yards back. So everywhere you went, you had to be watching for the boils. And what they would do is when the people would see one, then they'd call the NCOICs and they'd analyze it. And then if they needed to, like on day shift, then they would call me and the officer, Lieutenant Ariel Keating. It was like her first command was that down there. So she and I worked very closely together. And then we would make a determination, or me if she wasn't there. And then I determined if we needed to bring in engineers. And the interesting thing was that if the water was coming through, they would try to counter pressure, and they would build a circular dam around it. And depending on, they had their, they'd judge the size on how big, and then they'd go up and then they would let it fill. Now, and they would keep building it up until the water wasn't rising anymore, so it would equalize the pressure. But the interesting thing was, if the water was dirty, that was a really, really bad thing. If the water was clear, it wasn't undermining the whole thing. Right. So as the weeks went on, we had these little boils or dams, circular dams built all over the place. And the training was amazing on that.
I don't think people realize how much goes into something like that. I mean, I really honestly don't, because it's, like you said, there's more that goes into that than you can shake a stick at. And we were trying to train our people on how to work half those kids didn't know how to run a skid loader. Half of them didn't know if they had to. And we didn't have all those people. We just tried to get them all certified out. And that's what Sean did. Sean did a pretty good job about that, Sean Greer. So,
One of the things that I saw, because like I said, they were still building the levee when we were there, and then reinforcing and stuff as well. And there was one time they had certain driveways to go up on top of the levee that were like 18-wheeler rated, and some were not. And I remember we were getting ready to change over, and they were still bringing trucks up there. And I had a bunch of young people there. Even my oldest daughter was there coming in from Pier, because we had people there as well. And we're standing on the levee, and then we're looking down, and there's houses all along, and those levees are high and steep right down to their fronts. And I see this semi there, and he's like, and I'm like, oh, that dude's coming up here. I'm like, this is the wrong driveway. He's supposed to be down there. I couldn't communicate with them all, and he's coming barreling up. So we get off to the side, and that guy barrels up, takes a left with a side dump, and has to cut the corner because they come up, and so when they're right front corner of the semi is like going off the other side of the levee, they would crank left. And of course, there was not enough room. So when his whole truck was going off to the side, ready to roll right onto this house, he stops. And I'm like, oh my word. And then a little while later, this huge excavator comes up, lifts him up, drags him up, and off he goes. But trucks were tipping over because clay wasn't coming out of the side dumps. We had the two levees, like you were saying, so they'd come over to the QRF and then over. School buses were bringing people in. If they got stuck, bulldozers would push them. It was amazing.
And again, nobody got hurt that I'm aware of anyway. I mean, very seriously hurt. So yeah, that was quite a.
Did you spend much time on the levee, or was it most all your time administrative at the meetings?
Most of my time was, it was about 50-50 because then because they put you into those, that was at the bank, at the basement of the bank. That's where the command central was. And it was, they pretty much had that under control, and a lot of times suggestions, they'd handled that before. Sometimes trying to suggest something sometimes didn't go as well as you wanted it to go, but they at least considered it. And that was good. So then I spent my time up and down on those levees because I wanted to make sure, where are our people? Where are they? What are you doing? If you're taking a break or you're going to do, you got to let somebody know. And that was a big thing that I just go across, like, where's Jamie? Oh, no. What do you mean where you don't know? I mean, you have to communicate back and forth with each other. Where is everybody? It's not gonna, it's not that bad at this time. It doesn't have to be bad at this time. It can be bad right now. It's just going to happen. So, and I don't think some of the folks really realize, if you're in a command situation like that, the stress and anxiety that you have, because you're responsible for those people. At least I took that dang serious, because it's part of
extremely.
Yeah. And how are you going to tell that parent, or how are you going to tell that spouse, or how are you going to tell that child, or whoever it is, that this is what's going on? So, but again, it went pretty good. So that's kind of what I did a lot of observation on what was happening on those sites like that, just to say, hey, look, guys, you need to pull back, or you need to either get closer to each other. I mean, they were supposed to be so many feet. I don't remember how many feet it was apart that they were. And then as time went on, they spread out. And that made me nervous as well, because I didn't think we needed to do that. I thought we should have stayed the same all the time until it's a no-go anymore. We're okay. Everything's looking good. Keep it the same. Don't do that. Don't do that, because you could have a boil, you could have a small breach, or you could have, and it could happen so fast. Yeah,
absolutely.
So,
yeah. And I think when I learned to properly pronounce your last name, as we left the restroom and kept talking, I was asking you some questions, and we actually figured out that the reporting that we were doing with our MOC, or maintenance operation center, or whatever, was all of that information we figured out was not getting to your meetings. So I remember Lieutenant Keating, she had like some dental issue and was toughing it out. And I was like, and she had to get to the dentist. Yeah. And so I finally convinced her that we can handle what's going on. Yeah. And I think she had to go down to Omaha and get something done right away. And she came back probably too soon, but she was full of the duty that she had to do. But right after she left, then you and I had talked, and we got that whole chain of command fixed. So then I had to have a bunch of the NCOICs come back in and re-report, right? Because to fill out a chart properly, that you guys had access to the chart, and then that was a big deal, getting that line of communication fixed. Yeah, and again, I think when you're what we struggled with, I guess, a little bit, is because you got two entities. You got a green side and a blue side, and they all do it a little bit differently. And I have to, I have to believe that I thought us on the blue side did it a lot better than that. I thought we did. I just thought the accountability, and it's crazy too, because I can remember, when things were kind of calming down a little bit towards the end, those poor guys, and my kid was one of the green guys that were out there, and they were feeding those guys. They probably ate more bologna
than you'll ever want to see, or more. They had their MREs, and so I belong to the Elks down there in Sioux City, and some of those other groups that are there. So I started talking to these guys about meals. I said, "Do you ever have anybody that wants to take and donate some different meals?" We had burgers, we had all that cool stuff, and I went to Travis's commander and I said, "Hey, look," I said, "there is plenty of this for everybody to go around. This is what they wanted. The community wants to be involved," and he would not let them kids have that. They had, he says, the Army is supplying meals for these guys. I said, yeah, they're supplying them bologna is what they're giving them. I said, give them something else. Every day. He says, well, that's what they're going to eat, because that's, once they give them out their meal, it's checked off. And I tell those guys, when he leaves, have this, go with this, go with what's going to go on,
If I remember right, Knights of Columbus was bringing food, Red Cross was bringing food, and we were making sure that we were getting that distributed.
Everybody.
And 2/3 of my folks were Army.
Yep.
And we would, we'd have the NCICs allowed them to come grab food and go.
Yeah.
And you initiated that. That's what I'm finding out right now.
Yeah. It was kind of fun. I mean, that's kind of like what happened down at Katrina. Same type of thing. You're down with that hurricane business, but again, that's on the Army side of the house. And gosh, they just don't. You got to be good to your people. If you're good to your people will be good to you. So.
Yeah, I have a ton of photos of this whole deal. So I will either insert some, during our conversation here, or I might just make just a little section. I'll see how many photos I want to put in there. But there's even people that I go to church with that were the truck drivers. One was the bus driver, and just was hearing their stories just last year.
Good.
Talking about it, and it's like so many people were involved with that. You just had no idea, because you couldn't stop and see.
Couldn't.
People would drive by, and you might recognize a face that went by or whatever. But that was a multi-county wide effort. It was pretty amazing seeing that.
Yeah, I was trying to think of the name of that little community, or that little area that was on the northeast or northwest side of McCook. Everything was sandbagged up, and it looked like it was good, and then it breached, and then it just took out.
Is that near where they were filling the big sandbags that they moved with helicopters?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think Colonel Escom spent a lot of time up in that area coordinating all that, and I had the daytime guys filling sandbags, and we were in a couple different areas, and then we'd build up a bunch of bags, and then we'd sandbag like the water treatment area. And then we'd have another area, a few different other areas. But I remember one safety deal. They had, I don't remember if it was golf course personnel or whatever, but we had to clear out this area around this one small building. I don't remember what it was. But, trucks were just zooming by past there. But I remember one of them was in with a skid steer, and they were like pushing some trees over and making room for what we had to put in there. But we had people in there working, and this was a young guy on the skid steer. He was in a hurry, and he's pushing on these trees down here, and I'm standing 30 yards back, and I'm looking at the top of that tree that's dead, going like this. And I just yelled at the top of my lungs and just ran over there, because the dude was not looking up.
Yep.
And it could have hit, come right through his cab, hitting the people there. And it was, and I had just got that area safed up, you might call it. And the roads, and we had people were slowing trucks down on each side and all that kind of stuff. And we just got it set where it was working pretty good. And then we got the call. We all had to go down right to the river, because there was a certain house that we had to work with the Army to really sandbag up.
I think I remember that house.
It was a big one.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just the house. It was the levee along with it.
Right.
It wasn't like favoritism towards that home or anything. That's the one where up front they were filling in the swimming pool and, driving the skid steers right on their front, just getting sand everywhere. It was quite a sight to see.
It really was. It's things like that. That's why we belong. That's why we belong to the Guard. We're trying to help. We're state funded. That's how we should do these things. That's what we should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm glad that went well. And went well for the most part up in Pier as well,
Yeah.
so, and I didn't get up there. I didn't get up on that side of it.
Yeah, I didn't either.
So, but that was still, the water comes down. Is what it does.
Water always wins.
It wins. It just wins.
Well, it took out the whole interstate, like from Sioux City south to just north of Omaha.
Just north of Omaha. It did. So it was, and it took forever for that thing to reside down. And still, I don't think it's, well, you can still see the sand dunes in a lot of those different places out there.
Well, and you could see the water line on the trees once. It was a Herculean effort fixing that interstate because it was so bad through there that the huge slabs of concrete were like Stonehenge sitting straight up. Yeah, and they actually got that repaired or rebuilt pretty quick.
And it just amazes me what they can do. I always said that thing was kind of like a building an airplane in flight, because that's what it was. It was either going to, you had to do that. You had to take and construct what was going on while it was going on and do the best you can with that. So, and it all, like I said, it all came together very well. Very well. So.
That was amazing. And I don't remember if I was given a date to be done. I think it was maybe a month or something like that. But we had a family trip scheduled. We were actually going to Europe. We had a foreign exchange student from Belgium, and we were going to go see them and their family in 3 other countries and stuff. So I did what I needed to do when I was there. But when I got to just over the 3-week mark, I was getting a little nervous. Ooh, I'm not sure if I'm going to get to go on this. But then the changeover, they did work with different people. But I don't think I got to leave any extra early, but I think it was right when the transition was happening and the air was taking over leadership and stuff. But there was a couple things that didn't work so well for me with the personnel lists and the number of buses and all that kind of stuff. But the thing I'll praise the Army for is their supply system. You needed something,
they get it.
It was fast.
Yeah,
it was really fast. They were amazing that way.
And I think it's because they do that a lot. I shouldn't. Well, if there's a tornado or if there's any type of disaster, that's what those guys do. That's what and they're really, really good at it. You're right, and they are. Come hell or high water, they're going to get it done, or they're going to get their supplies the way they want to get it done.
Well, we had a little hell and a lot of high water on our deal down here, that's for sure.
We did on that. So
so were you there the 3 or 4 weeks or so like me, or were you there longer?
I was just there the 4 weeks, I think. I was with Escom. Escom I left at the same time too. So and I liked working with him. I thought he's great. He's got his stuff together.
Yeah, so our wing commander now.
Yeah, he is.
Just a super guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty wild. So how many years total in the Air Guard, you think? You about 04-ish, you said you got in there?
I got in at 04 out there at the Air Guard. I think I was in 04, 02 or 04, right? That neighborhood. So, yeah, and that's when I took actually, I was there before that. And then I started the medical administrative officer position in 04.
Okay.
Is what I did. So I was there.
Going full-time, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that was very, very rewarding as well. I thought the clinic did real well with that. It went through a number of commanders, and the cool part about that whole thing is you're in charge during the weeks, and then when drill came along, then the commander would come in.
Yep.
And as long as you briefed him on everything that's going on and everything's happening, everything was very good.
Good, because part-time commander is not an easy deal.
No, that's not. I don't know how sometimes they can do that. And they have to trust you. They have to trust what's going on. They have to trust your opinion.
Well, the full-timers, we have to kind of hang our ego at the door, which was very hard for me. I got a few commanders have talked to me about that, and I took it to heart. But, if you're supporting a part-time commander, you really got to put your heart into what you're doing during the week and be able to back off.
Back off and let them take over and see what's going on. That is hard because I have a pretty good size ego too. I mean, it's one of them things where, again, I think if you care about what you do and you give it your all, you can't just let that go. You just it's hard to let it go. Let's say that.
Right.
And so
if you're a hard charger, you're a hard charger.
Yep. And that's okay. That's okay, you know. And I can't remember how many stinking commanders I went through, and they were all, for the most part, very good. You know, they were really, really
They have
good.
great people out there
So-
at the South Dakota Air Guard.
They do. They do. They do. So no, and I, like I said, I can't complain about any of my time out there. I can't complain about. I just can't. It's just I learned a lot. I got the opportunity to do a lot of things. I never got put in jail or anything like that, you know. So, but you learn how the system works and how to get things going, and it's hard. It's very hard for, especially again, if you're not you're a full timer out there, but you're not the commander, and then the non full timers come during the weekend, and you have to be very selective on how you talk to them sometimes
Sure.
because you're not the commander. Really, what you say, they can take it for what it's worth because they know they're going to be gone the next day or the day after. So what the heck? And that was the biggest struggle I ever had, I think, was that they weren't taking it as seriously as I wanted them to take it.
Sure.
So, and rank especially, I was big on, you need to earn your rank. Just because you're taking in the air doesn't make you eligible to make senior master or to make you chief or to make you whatever you're going to be. You need to earn that. So tell me what you did, you know, and a lot of the commanders that I had didn't see it that way. I think is just because that's how they were. And tell me what you did or you do to deserve this. And I just want an answer. That's all I want. If you said nothing, then, and I had some say, hey, I spent my time in, I deserve it. Okay, I'll ask you again. What did you do to do that besides that?
I've had some conversations with some where, say, if they're a staff, they want to be a tech, or tech want to be a master. I would say, you know, if you're a staff, you need to be a tech now. It's exactly what you're saying.
Yep,
you know,
exactly.
It's just operate like a tech sergeant, operate like a master sergeant, and good things will happen.
Well, and I've said, you know, I did okay on my rank, but one of the things that I really wish I would have done, and I never got to do, I never made staff sergeant. That's back in the day when you'd be senior airman, and then you went to buck, and then you went to staff. And I never made staff, you know, and that's always, it's ate at me for all these years, and it still does today. It wouldn't matter if I was general. I think that was just so important to be that type of a leader of your folks and to have that status. And so, you know, I kind of look at my little, I like Larry board at home every once in a while, and I'll look at that and think, I never made it. I would have, I think, because I know, like I said before,
you know, you traversed up to the officer ranks, so
and
you know, there's no nothing to worry about there.
Like they said at the 185th, they said, well, we can't give you a commission, but we'll give you another stripe. Should have thought about that when I was asking for another stripe, you know, beforehand. So, but again, it worked out okay. I can't complain.
What was your rank when you retired?
Lieutenant colonel.
Lieutenant colonel. And what year was that?
2017, I think it was.
17
or 18.
Yeah, so I was just 3 years before me then.
Yeah, it was. I always say, some people make mistakes. I said but it was a good accomplishment.
So now you guys, you were heavily involved with all the exercises, and you had the mass response exercises, like with the airport. Did you get to go overseas, or what are some of the trips you got to do with the Air Guard?
The main ones that I got to go Air Guard wise was I got down to Katrina. You know, that was the same type of thing, that flood business. But that wasn't combat related, but it was a mess. Katrina was a huge mess. And then I took a command over in Kodiak in Alaska.
That's right. We wanted to talk about that.
Did that, and so that was good. Where else did I go? I went to Korea. Where else did I go? I think I was in California once, and then I went to, of course, I did get to go to Italy.
So were most of those trips solo, just you?
No.
Or were they all with
the one up in Kodiak up in Alaska was just me.
That was just you because it's command.
And then we had 12 people go down to Katrina, And same way with when we went to, I want to say Kosovo, right? But it's right in that neighborhood. But there was 3 of us that went down, and that was interesting. And then of course Suriname down to Suriname, and that was pretty rewarding. I mean, I taught combat support life with their medics and their soldiers down there. And it was really kind of interesting because when they look at you, these guys, I mean, they all got automatic weapons. They all come to their class with all this stuff that's all loaded and old stuff. I don't know whether their ammo was any good or not, but sitting, they could look right through you. I mean, their eyes would look right, almost a bloodshot yellow eye, and it was could have been kind of spooky. I think, if they wanted to hurt you, they're going to hurt you. I mean, that's just, there ain't nothing you're going to do about it. So, and I dealt a lot with these guys putting lines in, they need to I said, one of the most important things you can do is get an IV in somebody if you can get it in them. And then after a while, I let them stick each other. I let them do their stuff. That was actually kind of comical when I went back to my room because they know each other, and I think sometimes they hurt each other just to hurt each other, just see how much pain you can do, how much you can, and different carries and different bandages, that type of stuff.
Yeah, because they're like a sister country to our Guard unit, I think, aren't they?
Yes, they are. South Dakota.
So it's a partnership?
Yep, our partnership with these guys, and it was good. I mean, I wasn't sure at first about it, but all that stuff is an experience that you got to do. And same way with, Korea, same type of thing, I mean, we were supporting the 16s and we were doing the exercises over there. So that was our whole group that was there. So
yeah, that
was fun. I call it fun. I mean, it was fun. When you're not going to be shot at, that makes it a little more fun.
How long were you up in Alaska at Kodiak?
Up there 6 weeks.
6 weeks at command. What was the mission up there? What were you overseeing?
We were what they call the non-medical. We were doing a public health service with the Native Americans that were up there, and we had 6 different villages that we supported. And so once we got up there, we had the Army, the Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard. The whole works were up there in the different entities. So we had dental, we had. We had dental, we had x-ray, we had medical, we had lab, we had veterinarian services, we had, what else was going on up there that we supplied to each one of these little villages that were there. They would come in and we'd bring in our own portable equipment that was there, bring them in with Blackhawks or whatever we had to set it up within the morning, and then try to see people that afternoon. So we spent 2 days at each one of those places, sometimes 3, depending on how many people were at the village that needed the care. That's what was going on. So that was, and there again, some of those people, I don't know if it was the first time they saw military type folks that were there, but that was in what year was that? That was in 2017. I guess I did that. That was my last hurrah type business that was there. And so we took care of all that. We took care of, and each one of these places it's interesting. And you've been up to Alaska, you got kids up there. So, when that fog comes in and it's a mess and it's just ice and you're trying, these bush pilots will bring you in on, and you just about fill your drawers on some of those type of things that were there. But we did a lot of that. We did a lot of that. We did a lot of minor surgeries up there. We did whatever they needed, we gave them. And we would take an old school, some of those schools are nicer than schools that we have here, but some of them are. But we'd get that area and convert it into what we needed, and then bring them in. And they're on Alaskan time. I mean, they are. So you just do what you have to do there. The dental side of the house was always interesting because almost everybody up there needed dental care. It was to the point where it was not good. I mean, they would get somebody down and pull a tooth out with even sometimes they used anesthetics for the most part, but some of them, boy, they just gut it out. And you put a gauze in there, and they're thank you.
Oh wow,
thank you very much. Oh yeah, I heard like hell. So, but they were very appreciative. They'd always have something in their community room because it's all community there.
Yeah.
They all are together as a family. When they say it's a village that raises somebody, that's probably true, because in the evening wise, we would just get together with the rest of them, and then we just converse and we'd have a good time with that stuff. So, and so my job was just to make sure each person got each area was filled and was operational by the time, and if they needed this or they needed that, and I needed to do that. So I'd have to go to each one, which was good for me. I mean, it was kind of nice. As a commander wise, you have all these people that are under you. And I had a Navy captain that was under me.
Mm-hmm.
What the heck is this all about? And he was very good. He was really good. So, but we got it all going, and had some scares going in and out of some of those places, but it was, for the most part, very, very, very rewarding. And poor Colonel Walls. I thought Tim was going to talk to him, and it was kind of a last minute type thing that I got selected for this. And that was just before our inspection. And I said to Colonel Walls, I said, yeah, I've been selected to go to this thing here. He says, oh, I think you're going to go. I said, what do you mean I'm not going to go? I said that, I mean, this is a group that, I mean, this is a national project that's there. And I said, it should be a big plus for our base. He goes, we have an ORE, I think it was, inspection. I said, okay. And do you think you're ready for it? And I said, well, yeah, I'm ready for it. I said, why wouldn't I be ready for it? I said, I'm not going to go and leave these guys with their shirts hanging out. And we did very well during that inspection.
Well, like I said, during Guards of the Weekend and stuff, you step back anyway.
Yeah.
So you just stepped back enough that you weren't seen.
Yep. Yeah. And it worked out pretty good. So yeah,
Nice.
but it was public health wise. I mean, that's how that was dealt with. And they do that like every 3 years. I think they do that. I'm not sure I haven't heard much about it before, but yeah, I mean, we probably neutered more dogs and cats than you'd ever shake a stick at.
Wow.
That
Really?
veterinary people, because they're all running rampant up there
Sure.
anyway. So you might as well do that. And but no, we were very, very well received. So that was good.
A lot of experiences under your belt.
I think so. I think, yeah. And, and what do you really use them for? I mean, what do you, I'm pretty modest. I mean, I done a lot of neat things, done a lot of cool things. And
So why don't you pick out between 1 and 3, like most rewarding things that you are called to do?
that was one.
That was one.
That was one. Katrina was another.
Mm-hmm.
And then the flood down in Sioux City was another one that was kind of heavyweight, because you felt like you were contributing. You contributed to what was happening and what was going on with that stuff. And like on Honduras, that was another one that was actually pretty good, because we went again to the villages that needed to have the medical help that you were providing. And whether it was with dental care, whether it was with, medical care, whether it was with optometry was another one that we did up at in Akiak, in that area, up in Kodiak. The thing is that, we had donated glasses and stuff that people had brought. And so those optometry people, they'd fit them the best they could. And it was just like, hey, this is kind of cool. This is good. But, we used to have people, especially, when we went down to, where did I say before, this last place, wherever it was, down Honduras. When I was there, the lines, Jim, were a quarter of a mile long. People waiting to get in to have eye care, or waiting to have dental care. And our dentists would set them in folding chairs, and I'd help hold, or they'd hold, or I'd give them what tools they needed to have. And they'd get those guys, Jim, and they would get them in there, and they would go, tonk,
Man.
and pull it out, and they would just go, But their teeth were so rotten on a lot of them that it was just right next to their gums. So then you'd have to dig that out and then get a hold and pop that out of there.
Well, and the pain was probably so bad that they'd been putting up with who knows how long.
It's a piece of cake.
That you give them maybe just a little bit of a local, couple minutes, and pop out, and they're
a lot of times they didn't even localize it. I mean, a lot of times they either run out of what we had. But the crazy part is that we would be there, we'd get there, we'd set up, we'd be ready to go by 7:30 in the morning. And that line, I mean, people are there. They're camped out.
Mm-hmm.
Come 5:30, 5:45, 7 o'clock, whenever we were going to leave, this was the last patient, and you might have 50 yards of people, and they would just turn around and go, are you coming tomorrow?
Right.
Yes, we'll see if we can get here tomorrow. And then to tell them that if you weren't coming back, that was gut-wrenching for me to do that, because they would just, and all they do is take, like I said, fold over a claw.
Just no hope.
No. We took off one time with those Hueys, and that was kind of interesting, because those things, they have a downward draft from them. If you've ever ridden or do those boogers, we tore off the frickin' roofs of this village. It was so the engineers got to come back and start to work on
fix
that
things.
too.
Yeah.
So,
probably better than what they were.
Oh yeah, I think they were, but it was Honduras was interesting. Families living in huts with one bed that is just infested with bed bugs and lice and that kind of stuff. And the thing is that once you treat them and you treat them good, 6 weeks later it's going to be the same thing again.
Yeah.
That's
it's the sad part.
That's to me the sad part. So it would really be nice if you'd have, some type of continuity to go along with that. Mm-hmm. So, but I think, like, going back to which ones were the most, those were probably some of my highlights.
How about most challenging?
Oh, probably
one or two or three or whatever
I can tell you one that was real challenging was Katrina. Mm-hmm. Down in when we got down there, it was they had us set up doing nothing, but Halibut was feeding us good, and we were doing our thing, and yada 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 was going on. I'm going, this is stupid. You sent me down here to do what? And we needed to get down to on Highway 1 down to like Port-au-Prince, something down at the bottom of the very end of Louisiana. And so I kept talking to the guys, and I kept saying, hey, this is crazy. This is a crazy thing, because we're down here to help. We have vaccine. We have all this other stuff, and you're not letting us do tetanus. You're not letting us do anything. We're sitting up here doing nothing. And I said, well, So and I talked to the commander. I took a Blackhawk ride down there just to see how it looked, and it was tough, and said, we need to go down there. And I just made the command decision. We're going down. And that's what we did. We convoyed our stuff up. We went down there, and thank God, it was one of the Army people. I think it was a Lovejoy or somebody from the Army sales saved my bacon on that one, and said that we got requested to go down to that because they needed to have the help down there. And command said, sounds good. So why don't you send your people? Well, we were almost there by that time. So, but we got down there. We didn't have all the supplies that we needed, but in the town itself that was there, one of the town, and it wasn't, I can't remember the name of the little town that was there, but they had a hospital. And I said, okay, hospitals, they have supplies, don't they? Yeah. I said, well, Major DeBuhr just declared martial law on this hospital. There wasn't anybody in there. There wasn't anything. We went there. We got X-ray solution developer, X-rays. We picked up supplies. We picked up whatever we would need to have. Took it down back with us and got to treat folks that were there. Which, again, to me, it made sense, but probably governmentally it probably didn't, because somebody didn't say, you can't do that.
Sure.
Somebody paid for that. Because I got called from one of the communities that were down there, said, you need to come up and help us to do tetanus shots. I said, oh, okay. I said, well, let me see if I can I'll get a detail together, and we'll do the shots. So I get this detail together. We go to this site that was doing tetanus shots, and the site was charging the community for tetanus shots.
Really?
So I went up to the organizer and I said, what's going on? They said, well, he says, you guys are going to help us do this. And we wanted you there because you have the military presence, and people won't rush, or they won't do this or they'll do that. They'll watch what's going on. I said, but are you charging these people for this? They said, well, yeah, we're going to charge them for that. Why wouldn't I? I said, it's our vaccine. It's our people, and you're charging them for that? I said, that's not a good look for the military. And I said,
and where's that money going?
That's right. And to have us do that, I said, that's one of the better decisions I think I made. I said, we're leaving. We're not going to be part of this. We're not going to have somebody do that. And I thought, okay, he's out of there. Larry's out of this gun. So, yeah.
Too much risk even for you.
Oh, for me. That was. Yeah, it was that DeBuhr guy. Wasn't that DeBuhr? DeBuhr.
Oh, yeah, two different guys.
Yeah. He's got a twin brother. I don't know. He's down here somewhere. He's an imposter. But yeah, it's that was kind of that was a tough deal. That was, but geez, I'll tell you what. And we even had people that probably didn't agree with some of that decision, like that little martial law thing that I did. I mean, they said, well, you can't do that. So what are you going to do? I just said, are you going to sit down here and do absolutely nothing? Or do you want me to send you home? What do you want me to do? Because I'm more than happy to do that. I said, it's either you can help this or this will go this way. It's as simple as that. And I probably would, and nobody left. I only had one nurse that was, she wasn't probably the most ambitious person in the world, but she didn't want to do that. And so the shifts that I made for these guys, I said, okay, this is how I see it. I said, we're going to be a 24 on, 24 off. So half the time on the 24 on, you're not going to be that busy the whole time. So you're going to get your rest. The second 24 hours that you're out there, I want you out helping the community. That means pulling people's stuff out of their house, doing whatever you have to do to help these folks out. And I thought, well, okay. And that I never had one person complain about that. They all said, sounds good. We're down here. We're going to keep busy. So that went really well. Then what happened is I didn't know, down in Louisiana, the way that works down there, it's a little corrupt, a little bit. Oh, it's a lot corrupt is what it is. But everybody's related to everybody. I mean, it's the sheriff is related to the city police guy. The city police guy is related to the mayor. The mayor is related to the what do you call them guys? The parish person that's in charge, like the governor of those areas that are there. So they're all tied in together. And I used to go down, I used to talk to the one guy. I said, hey, look, we're down here. This is what we're going to do. He goes, okay. And it was like one of those looks like, okay. I thought, all right. So then I got called to his office, which was the parish mayor or whoever he was. And he said, Major, we have a grocery store here in the town. He said, could you guys help us clean that up and we can get things going? Needless to say, I didn't know that was his relations grocery store. I said, yeah, we can get that. So you'll have supplies and you'll have stuff that you can, give. Yep, we will. Get there, do that. And then I find out they're charging people for it. I thought, oh, guys, you're screwed up on that deal. So then it was, now what do I do? So, and that's when I asked the guys, I said, just go out in the community, take the Humvees out, find somebody that looks, if they're out working in their yard or something, you help them. Well, 3 days later, I get called back to that guy's office again, and he says, what are you doing? I said, well, we're helping the community. That's really why we're down here. He says, no. He says, I don't think you get it. I said, what don't I get? And he said, I'm going to give you a list. These are the people that and the addresses, if you can find the addresses that you can help. The other ones, we don't have to worry about that. He says, these are the ones. I looked at him and I just said, okay. Took the list back with me and I said, continue doing what you're doing. What are they going to ask us to leave, or are they going to, what are they really going to do? Because we were helping is what we were doing. So
instead of taking care of their select few,
they were taking care of their select few, and it was interesting how that works. It's really interesting. And yeah, I thought, wow, yeah. So again, you said a lot of different experiences that you run into and that you do, and we went back down there 2 years later, 2.5 years later, and I visited with some of the people that didn't do it militarily, but just did it
Right.
privately. So, and they still remember who you were. They
Yeah.
remember what was going on. It was so that made it worthwhile, and I wasn't in the brig.
There you go.
Once again. So
then you retired from the military. So then what are you doing after that?
Well,
or hobbies, or how you
oh
keep them
God,
busy?
yeah, I can't. I wish I could say I could retire. I really wish I could. I could, but I can't at this time in my life. I think I'm way too active to do that. So what I did, and don't shoot me, world, for this, and I hope you're not listening. When I got out of the Air Guard, I got approached by Todd Magnuson. Everybody knows Todd.
Yep.
And Todd says, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. He says, well, why don't you do some crop adjusting with me? I can, what do you want me to do? Measure bins? What do you want me to do? Well, so I did that for about 2 years. I went ahead and I got that certificate. That's a pain in the butt to get, trust me. But I got that. And then after a couple times where Todd would have me crawl up the frickin' bins, because Todd doesn't leave the ground.
Yeah.
Todd never has, and it's icy. There's a couple times it's pretty icy, and I'm going up them rungs, and I thought, bang, 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 and I could fall down, kill myself. So I quit doing that, and I went to a camp. I went to it was an Assembly of God camp. It was a kid camp that they had, and I volunteered for, what was it, 2 weeks at that damn camp with those kids, and it was fun. The kids were all not adopted, but they were foster kids.
Fostered, yeah.
Foster kids. And some of that was kind of tough and some of that was pretty challenging. And I ran into one of the nurses that was there, and she says, well, what did you do? I'm talking to the kids and that kind of stuff. And I said, well, I'm an RN, I work for this company. It's called Health Advocates, and it's out of California. She said, would you be interested in doing that? And I thought, I don't know. What do they do? Well, we do flu shots, we do health assessments, we do go into different businesses, we do that kind of stuff that's going on. We do blood pressure, we do blood draws, we check different things that are going on, hemoglobins, glucose, and that kind of thing. So I said, let me do that. So I applied to these people, and that's been how many years ago? Got hired, never met any of these folks. I get all these different assignments, and you can pick the assignment that you want to go. So I've been to Kansas City, I've been down to Nebraska, I've been to North Dakota, South Dakota. I've been down to, actually I can do some things in Minnesota, but I can't do nursing things because they don't recognize the South Dakota license. Oh. So I'll do that and just pick the ones that I want to go to, and I meet a lot of people. Like I said, I like to probably talk more than I should, but you meet a lot of folks. So I'd been doing that since then. And then my brother-in-law asked me, he says, hey, in between stuff, he says, Jason works for the railroad. And those, like the spikers and the tie gangs and all that stuff that's got those yellow machines, those little yellow ones. Well, Jason's got this pressure washing business, these big monstrous things. He said, I could always use some help. He says, would you ever want to do that? I said, do I have to think? He goes, no. I said, okay. So I've been to Montana, Wyoming. I've been down to Colorado. We've been all over the place doing that. And it's very lucrative. I mean, he gets paid real well from the railroad. And so I think I retired from that 3 months ago. I just finally said, I haven't fallen off a train yet. I haven't fallen off any of that stuff yet. Because sometimes you get that soap on there and it gets a little slippery, or you're underneath that and it's steaming, and it's one of the dirtiest jobs you'll ever want to have, but paid good. And I got to see a lot of country. So I did that till this year, and I'll probably just, I don't know, part-time nurse that. And I just got back from an elk hunt out at Travis, and I went out there and bagged a cow.
Did you?
Yes.
Nice.
Got a nice cow. Got a real nice cow.
Excellent.
So that was fun. So I like to hunt, I like to fish, and I like to that kind of stuff. And of course, we got the hobby place out there in Geddes that it's kind of fun to have. It's just something to do. We'll get out there sometime, maybe if nobody watches this podcast, I'll never see you again. You may not see again anyway, but
So, yeah, describe what you've got there
Well,
for a facility and land.
what I did, Janice and I did, I got one of the neighbors out there, one of Travis's friends who was a deputy sheriff's mom says, and she's a city manager for Geddes. She goes, I went to her, I said, hey, you got any property for sale here in town? And she goes, yeah, I got a lot that's over here. I said, really? Yeah, you interested? And I said, well, I might be. And she says, well, this is the person, contact him and see what's going on. So I bought this lot. It's a, what is it? It's a 75 by 200 lot. It's on the corner. I thought, now what the hell am I going to do with this thing? What am I going to do with it? There's nothing on it. I mean, it's just, they took the house off of it. So it's got sewer and it's got, water and all that cool stuff. So I bought that and then I mowed that son of a gun for like 2 years. Kept mowing it. And then the neighbor kept coming over saying, you want to sell that? I said, well, I don't know. Do you want to buy it? He says, well, I might want to. He says, I've been mowing that for you. He never mowed that for me. I said, well, I said, maybe you should make me an offer. Maybe I'd take it. Well, he's never made me an offer. So I thought, okay. So then she goes and she calls me again. She says, hey, we have the old city park on the corner of Main and wherever, Main and I think it's 11 or something like that coming across. And he says, we're going to put that up for silent bids. Would you be interested? It's got 18 lots on it. I mean, it's kind of set up. All it is nothing, but nothing. I mean, it's had some old trees and all that kind of stuff on it. And I said, well, maybe I will. So I put this low ball bid on it. All I got is a push lawnmower. So I put in for it. And the next thing I know, I get a call from her. She's saying, so you're another landowner here in town. So that's how I got this goofy thing. So now what am I going to do with it now? So then I put up a shed. It's like a 36 by 32 metal shed that's on it. So to put the boat in, to put stuff like that, and I guess in, and then I put a loft in there, and then we put our fifth wheel trailer on there, put that in, and I ran that sewer line from there, so I got city sewer and water, and I'm thinking, God, who likes to take and use a camper bathroom? So I built a bathhouse on the side. It's got a shower in it. It's got, I think it's a 40 gallon water heater. It's got a commode and it's got a sink and it's got all that. So all the convenience of home, but it's a different separate building. And I thought, well, okay. And then I had this closed in thing, porch is what I had back in Canton. So Janice says, well, why don't we make a diner back here? Okay. Sounds good. So I went a little ways away from the shed itself, and I put up this 14 by 16 diner. And in the diner, we got like a popcorn machine. There's a microwave in there. There's a frickin' pizza oven. There's one big upright refrigerator and then a small refrigerator that's over here. It's got hot and cold running water on that side there. And then I got a freezer in there. And then, of course, I got the cabinets and all that other crap. And so then I got like the dining room table and thing. And it's all windows, almost all windows. So it's really kind of nice. I mean, you get out of the elements, you get out of the stuff, and you can do that. And so then I said, hey, that's kind of cool. But geez, in the summertime, I better open this thing up. So I put an window air conditioner, got that in. I thought, well, on the back side, let's make a cook station. So I have this cook station on the back side of that. It's tied into I got that. I mean, that's all wired in, and it's got a place where I've got my Blackstone grill that's sitting there on there. And then I have the two, they're like little shelf type things there that you can put hot plates and all that stuff on there. So you just keep it nice and cool.
Sure.
Do that. So then, oh crap. Well, then whenever the kids would come over, it would rain. It never failed. They would come over and it would rain. So they'd be in their tents and so then I thought, well, this is during COVID. I thought, I'll build a bunkhouse is what I'll do. So I did that. So that bunkhouse itself it's 12 by 16 is what it is. And I have the lofts up above and the bed type things down here. And then it's got the ceiling fan, it's got the heater, and it's got the air conditioner, and it's got the chairs that you can sit in on the side. And then if you want to, you can put like a air mattress type deal before you get to the wall on the one side, because everybody's got their double bed then, and the kids can be up above. Okay, that worked out really kind of nice. And then they had the, so then I'm thinking, doggone, guys got to have a man cave. I mean, take a look here. This is a man cave. This is where it's at. Well, my man cave isn't anything like this one. My man cave is it's 18 foot in diameter grain bin that I had him bring in. And I thought, well, where am I going to, first of all, where am I going to find something like that? And so my neighbor, I'm talking to Dale all the time, and he says, well, hell, he says, my dad had one on the home place there. He said, you know, Dad died. He said, we had an auction. He says, that's been about 6 years ago, and somebody bought it, and they never did come get it. He says, if you want it, you can have it. I said, oh, okay. And then I had to find somebody to move it.
Right.
So I did. I found those guys in Platt that moved the doggone things. And then he brought it in. Of course, he got stuck in the yard. Bring it the wettest day of the world, you know. Bury your tractor in that thing, and I could have a foxhole right around across. But I went ahead and I put down 1,668 blocks or bricks on it. So it's sitting across there. And I've got and I had them set that down on top of that. I mean, it's pretty light once you get that. And I got the movie screen like you've got on yours. Mm-hmm. I took and cut out the windows in it with, you know, just a grinder, cut those out. And then I put screens in. So can screen it and you can see outside. Then I got 2 monstrous fans in that doggone thing. I had Melanie help me put up a couple rafters kind of coming across on that thing. So I got them hooked up there. Got the popcorn machine in there. Got a little. It's what do you go? It's like a waterfall is what it actually is. On the one side, Janice needed to have a waterfall, so we have that inside there. So we have that there, and then we have the heater in the center that you can use. You know, if it's really that cold or if it's not that cold, and it's got the seating all around. But it keeps all the bugs. You don't have the bugs that you'd have to deal with. So that's there. And then I had to put an awning on that sucker. So, you know, when you come out, you won't want to get wet right away if it's going to be wet. So that's sitting there. And then I just put up this summer. A friend of mine had an old merry-go-round that they had it at the schoolhouse where they went to school. And, well, maybe you remember the Steckelbergs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Out there. It was Jerry's kids had that. So I kept bugging Lori all the time. You know, Lori, what are you doing with that thing? Oh, I don't know. I said, it's just going to rot away and it's going to get, I'll buy it from you. You tell me what you want. It probably should be used because it's at the school. Well, if you think you can put that thing back together again, you go ahead. I said, okay. So when they had pulled that out of the ground, it looks like a great big Hershey kiss of concrete.
Yeah.
That they put that thing down. And I took that whole thing up, put it on my trailer. Of course, all the seats were rotted and all that stuff. So I got out there and I dug that in. So I have that out there, and you can just take that now and just give it a little push, and that thing goes. And now I know why nobody ever did that, because it kind of makes you a little nauseated.
Yeah.
You kind of go around on that thing. So somebody will probably break something. So I got that out there for them, and so I should get a slide of some sort, I guess, for the kids, because Travis is the only one with little kids anymore.
Right.
So, and that's our whole life. Janice and I just live for those grandkids. We got 8 of them, and it's, you know, one got married, one is a senior this year, and then Morgan's a junior, and then Ray is she's in 10th grade, and then as you go down again, then you got Carlia and Koa and Truman. So they're all older, you know, the other kids, but the littler ones are there. But so we always have a gala once a year out there, you know, where we do different games, you know, 4-square type, volleyball type thing. I've got a tetherball thing sitting out there that they do. Mm-hmm. It just enough to keep everybody busy. If you want to be busy, you can do that. And I got my horseshoes out there.
Grandpa and Grandma are doing it up right.
Yeah.
That's cool. You were describing this to me. We actually met up at a funeral a month or so ago.
Yeah.
And then we talked about doing this, and then you're filling me in on all that. So maybe sometime we'll get out there and film all that.
Yeah, we'll go fishing out there. Nothing to do it. We got a film during. We were sitting out in the pontoon, just going out and going down to the dam.
There you
just
go.
messing around, but.
Well, the grandkids, that's a lead in to something that I try to ask everybody or most people. So you're familiar with your grandkids.
Oh, very much so.
So you'll never meet your great grandkids, but you've got 35 of them sitting underneath that center camera right now. What do you want to tell them?
What would I tell them? Do what you're told. You can go out and you can probably, I think being independent, do what's right. That's all I can say. Do what's right. Work hard, have fun, be fair, and be kind. I think that's just it. And I still, I'm on the floor with those kids if they want to be on the floor, if you want to do that stuff. And that's where it's always going to be. That's our future,
Yes.
And I just want them to know that, hey, most of the time, kids, you lose them after a certain age. You just do. And so, heck, even Morgan and Hunter and Ray, they still come out and they get in the side by side and bomb around, or they all kneeboard, or we use the tube on it. Whatever they want to do is fine. And then the younger three that Travis has, they just love it. So it's all. Just remember Grandpa and Grandma as wanting to be not so much your buddy, but just want to be part of your life. That's it. And hopefully that'll go on forever. Hopefully it will. So far we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And it's not for us to judge them. It's we are there for guidance. Guidance if you want it. If you don't want it, sometimes you probably don't want to have me be part of your guidance, but but it's one of them things where you try to do that, and family. It's all about family. That's what it's about. If you can't have it. So
yeah, well, you're doing a great job.
Oh,
all the way around from what I can tell.
I hope so. I'm still here. I'm not in jail. I keep saying that all the time. As long as I'm not. Probably since Travis was a deputy sheriff out there for a while, it helped me a couple times.
There you go.
So, but it was good. Very good. So
excellent.
Real
well,
good.
I want to thank you so much for agreeing to come in here and talk for a while. And
I was apprehensive, to be honest. I thought, what am I getting into? What did I do? What am I gonna say?
That's what a lot of people are like. And I mentioned it to you beforehand here that a lot of people, very humble, all that, and people don't want to talk about themselves. Yeah. But I tell them this is the time and the place.
Yeah.
And you just it's for your friends, your family, your progeny.
Yep.
The whole bit. So I really appreciate you coming on and doing this.
Well, I appreciate you asking me. I think that's been good. So
all right.
very
Well,
good,
thank you, Larry.
You betcha. Hometowners, folks. Hometowners.
Excellent.
All right.
All right. Thanks for watching.
You betcha. Okay, dokie.
I'm going to make sure that this is nice and snug. Yeah.
I promise I won't spit on your mic. I'll try not to anyway. So, but I didn't know that was a person standing there without a head.
Yeah, my oldest daughter made that.
I was going, what the heck?
Well, I had a wood burn stove here for a long time, and I took it out, but that stood back in the corner, and then I was going to get rid of it. I was cleaning stuff out, and I was like, when I blackened this whole place, I just sat that there, and I looked at it, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. It looks there with the black. So I was like, I could tell people that are going to sit here and start and say, that's who we're talking to right there.
Yeah. Well, how do you do the headless? Well, that's good. Well, you enjoy your daughters up there, and Alaska's a cool place. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It's and we've talked about we're just trying to figure out what to do on our 50th. We just haven't decided. what we want to do, for sure. She wants to go back over to Europe and see it rather than as an 18-year-old.